Chapter 2382 Fight between Dharmic Daos. 2382 Fight between Dharmic Daos. The heartland of the Fiend domain. Apart from Black and Earth-grade sects that fought everywhere for resources and territories, there were also some Heaven-grade sects and factions lingering in this area. At the level of Heaven-grade sects, there would definitely be Grotto Heaven experts presiding over the sect. Those were Fiend Kings. This area of Zephyr Thunder Palace was under the jurisdiction of Black Fiend sect. Unlike the 9 Firmament Immortal domain, generally speaking, no matter how many sects and factions below fought one another, even if one of them was destroyed, Black Fiend sect would not interfere. As the sect master of Black Fiend sect and a Fiend King, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven had seen too many sects and factions rise and fall and was long used to it. In his opinion, the only way to nurture true paragons for his use was through continuous killing and conquest. As long as those sects and factions were still under his lead, he would not appear. However, this day, on a whim, he sensed a strange energy fluctuation in the distance that was extremely unusual. Zhong Yang. Suddenly, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven spoke. Here. Before long, a middle-aged man in black armor walked over from beneath the hall with a cold expression. He knelt in front of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven. What happened over there? The spirit consciousness of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven moved and a map of the heartland of the Fiend domain appeared in midair as he pointed to an area. That's the location of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Zhong Yang said deeply, in the past few days, Yang Zui and the others have gathered the 18 Fiend armies and 1 million Fiend cultivators to attack Zephyr Thunder Palace. It's not down yet. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven frowned. I'm not sure. Zhong Yang said, I heard that Feng Kantien has some tricks up his sleeves. He was once the supreme perfected immortal of the 9 Firmament Immortal domain and is not weaker than Yang Zui. However, with the help of Fairy Purple River and the others, it shouldn't be a problem for Yang Zui to destroy Zephyr Thunder Palace. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven shook his head gently. Something's not right. An extremely powerful energy fluctuation suddenly appeared over there. Something might have happened. Zhong Yang asked. It's possible. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven nodded and paused for a moment before continuing. It's also possible that Feng Kantien entered the Grotto Heaven realm. No matter who it is, congratulations, Sect Master. You've gained another Fiend King and capable general under your lead. Zhong Yang congratulated hurriedly. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven threw out a badge. Take my badge and go take a look. No matter who it is that entered the Grotto Heaven realm, have them come and meet me. Understood. Zhong Yang bowed and retreated. At the same time, in another Heaven-grade faction, Yellow Springs Villa, a man who was watering and weeding the medicinal field sensed something and exclaimed softly, looking in the direction of Zephyr Thunder Palace. What's going on? Why is there such a huge commotion? The man murmured softly in deep thought. Godfiend Ridge. A golden-haired, blue-eyed man sat in a resplendent palace, resting with his eyes closed. Suddenly, as though he sensed something, the man opened his eyes and soared into the air, looking into the distance with a bewildered expression. Wind Fiend Sect. An evil wind blew and a figure suddenly appeared, looking at the distant horizon with a playful expression. Zephyr Thunder Palace. The 5 Thunder Phantoms of different races joined forces to attack the Martial Dao Prime Body. Although the Martial Dao Prime Body could not injure the 5 Thunder Phantoms single-handedly, the 5 of them could not injure his foundation as well even when they joined forces. The Martial Dao Prime Body looked a little wretched and was covered in injuries. However, most of them were superficial wounds. As long as the combat stopped, they would recover before long. Each of the 5 Thunder Phantoms had different methods and Dharmic Daos. The black-robed woman's Dharmic Dao was mysterious and was the most troublesome to deal with for the Martial Dao Prime Body. Each time the Martial Dao Prime Body attacked, the black-robed woman seemed to have expected it and could determine his intentions and even retaliate in a preemptive manner through her attacks and trajectory. Furthermore, the black-robed woman's movement technique was agile. The Martial Dao Prime Body attacked repeatedly but to no avail. Of course, the Martial Dao Prime Body relied on his spirit perception and the black-robed woman could not cause any fatal damage to him either. The white-robed woman's Dharmic Dao leaned towards the spirit. Her figure was graceful and charming. The Tao heart of the martial Tao prime body was firm as a rock and unshakable. The white-robed woman's dharmic Tao had the least impact and threat on him. As for the old ape, he was extremely strong and even the martial Tao prime body could not withstand it. The two people who appeared later on also had strong dharmic Taos and heaven-defying combat strength. Most of the injuries on the martial Tao prime body were left behind by the old ape and the two people behind him. Right then, two figures appeared from the tribulation clouds once more. One of them was a man who wore snow-white robes and wielded a long sword. He had a cold expression and shifted his gaze towards the martial Tao prime body without any emotions in his eyes. Swoosh! The white-robed man attacked. A sword beam suddenly lit up and retracted. The martial Tao prime body had never seen such a terrifying sword technique. That sword strike fused speed and killing power to its limits. It was perfect and incomparably stunning. The martial Tao prime body was entangled by the previous 5 thunder phantoms and was already at his limits. He could not defend against that sword at all. Flashes of blood spewed out. In a flash, the martial Tao prime body retreated and avoided fatal damage. However, his abdomen was still pierced by the sword, leaving a bloody hole. At the same time, the Green Lotus true body was shocked when he saw that sword. Previously, he saw a tattered piece of white paper in the secret pavilion of the academy with the words Sword Classic written on it. The Green Lotus true body had long memorized the sutra of the Sword Classic. However, because it was incomplete, he could not comprehend the contents at all. But now, when he saw the white-robed man's attack, the Green Lotus true body seemed to have an understanding. Suddenly, he felt that he understood a little about the initially obscure and incomplete sutra of the Sword Classic. After the white-robed man, another figure appeared. Stepping on the galaxies, he waved his hand and the stars shifted. It was already the limit for the martial Tao prime body to fight 1 against 5. The white-robed sword cultivator that appeared almost pushed him to the brink of death. Coupled with this phantom that arrived with the stars, the martial Tao prime body would not be able to escape death. Sensing the danger of the martial Tao prime body, the hell suppression tripod shuddered and the 4 sacred souls left the tripod on their own, letting out a roar, screech. Oh! The 4 sacred souls at the peak of the perfected one realm surrounded the star phantom at the back and released ferocious attack. As for the star phantom, with a single wave of his hand, a sea of stars surged and countless galaxies flowed. He fought against the 4 sacred souls with ease and was not disadvantaged. Poof! 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 With the addition of the white-robed sword cultivator, the martial Tao prime body was forced to retreat in defeat against the encirclement of 6 phantoms and countless wounds appeared on his body as blood gushed out. Before long, the body of the martial Tao prime body was extremely battered, leaving only a skeleton with some flesh stuck on it. It was almost impossible to see his human form. In reality, although the martial Tao prime body seemed like he was in an extremely terrible state, the situation was not completely irreversible. Although the 6 phantoms joined forces and severely injured the martial Tao prime body, they could not sever his bones. Because he had attained lesser mastery of the true martial Tao body, the martial Tao technique was already imprinted on his bones. Although the combat strength of the 6 phantoms was strong and their dharmic Taos were mysterious, they could not sever the martial Tao or surpass it. This no longer seemed like tribulation transcendence, but a fight between dharmic Taos. Chapter 2383, 2383 Hell's Gate. 2383 Hell's Gate. Is that person truly only a perfected fiend? Even this can't kill him? When the fiends saw that, their hearts skipped a beat as they exchanged shocked glances. Yang Zui said in a deep voice, that person is already severely injured. Even if he can survive this calamity, he'll definitely die if we seize the opportunity to attack. Beneath the hell suppression tripod, Yang Beichen, Ming Zhen, and the others could only watch helplessly. Master won't just die here, right? Heavenly Wolf was unsure as well and muttered. With a melancholic expression, Jiyu Tongyu sighed gently. Right now, I'm afraid we can only pray that there won't be any more thunder phantoms. Under the hell suppression tripod, the Thunder Emperor, Feng Kantian, assumed a lotus position and closed his eyes, as though he had fallen into a mysterious state. In his consciousness, the surging sea of lightning shrank continuously. His strength was accumulating continuously as well, as though he was consolidating power for some earth-shaking commotion. On the battlefield, the martial Tao prime body had nowhere to retreat against the encirclement of the 6 thunder phantoms. Suddenly, the martial Tao prime body roared into the skies and channeled his essence spirit. He conjured hand seals repeatedly with both hands, and a gigantic door shrouded in black chi appeared behind him. The door was like a dark abyss that was bottomless. At the same time, it was like the mouth of a gigantic beast that could devour everything. This was a dharmic Tao that was evolved by the martial Tao prime body after he obtained the Hell Suppression Tripod and controlled Avachi, Hell's Gate. The black chi that surged around the Hell's Gate was the Avachi fiend chi that could corrode everything and taint all living beings. All of you, come in. The martial Tao prime body hollered and propped up the Hell's Gate, enveloping the 6 thunder phantoms. Fiend chi surged and covered the skies. The Hell's Gate led to Avachi. The martial Tao prime body wanted to suppress the 6 thunder phantoms in Avachi. A powerful suction force burst forth from the Hell's Gate and pulled the 6 thunder phantoms in. As though they sensed danger, they hurriedly released various dharmic Taos and sword techniques to fight against the Avachi fiend chi, wanting to break free from the Hell's Gate. Buzz, buzz, bang, bang. The Hell's Gate shook violently with a loud bang. The first to break free from the Hell's Gate was the black-robed woman. The turtle shell in her hands shone with rays of light, and mysterious runes appeared, as though they could see through the heavenly secrets and divine all living beings. At the same time, she released that mysterious footwork once more. With a single step, a square pattern appeared beneath her feet, as though it was all-encompassing and contained the secrets of heaven and earth. Relying on the turtle shell and mysterious footwork in her hands, the black-robed woman broke free from the Hell's Gate. Even so, she suffered a huge loss this time round, and her phantom faded significantly, turning almost transparent. The second to charge out was the white-robed sword cultivator, who appeared last. A single slash of his sword tore through the Avachi fiend chi and created a clear sword scar on the Hell's Gate. Although the white-robed sword cultivator escaped, he was still tainted by a lot of Avachi fiend chi. After he purged the fiend chi completely, the phantom faded as well, as though it had expended a lot of energy. After a crack appeared on the Hell's Gate by the white-robed sword cultivator, the remaining 4 people could no longer be trapped. The old ape smashed down with his rod, creating a huge pit in the Hell's Gate that was filled with spiderweb-like cracks that extended continuously. It was on the brink of collapse. The old ape charged out. Immediately after were the 2 men that represented darkness and light. The white-robed woman came last. Although the 6 thunder phantoms escaped, they nearly died inside. Furthermore, they suffered immense losses this time round, and most of their auras were depleted. They were no longer the same as before. The reason why the Hell's Gate could release such a powerful might and devour the 6 thunder phantoms was because this dharmic Tao already contained a trace of a grotto heaven's power. The martial Tao prime body had just entered the true martial realm and should not have come into contact with that power. However, his martial Tao furnace had smelted too many dharmic Taos and divine powers. Thereafter, he obtained the Hell Suppression Tripod and controlled Avachi. He was even trapped in Greater Avachi for 1,000 years and tortured. That was the reason why he could imitate an existence similar to a grotto heaven. To be precise, the martial Tao prime body had yet to comprehend the power of the grotto heaven realm. The Hell's Gate was merely a dharmic Tao that he had evolved by imitating Avachi. It merely took on the form of a grotto heaven but did not have the intent of a grotto heaven. Even so, the martial Tao prime body nearly killed the 6 thunder phantoms conjured by the heavenly tribulation. Be it the 6 thunder phantoms or the martial Tao prime body, they had already reached their limits in this battle. On the other side, the outcome of the battle between the Star Phantom and the 4 sacred souls was still indeterminate. Right then, the tribulation clouds appeared once more. Another thunder phantom descended. Beneath the Hell Suppression Tripod, Yang Beichen, Ming Zhan, and the others felt their hearts sink. The situation earlier on was still balanced, and the martial Tao prime body at least had a chance of fighting. But now, the arrival of yet another thunder phantom would break that balance completely. There was a high chance that this final phantom would end the martial Tao prime body. It was a monk wearing an ancient kasaya and holding a bronze square tripod in his hands. It was extremely similar in size to the hell suppression tripod. However, there were no patterns of the 4 sacred souls on the 4 walls of the tripod. Others might not be able to tell what it was, but when the martial Tao prime body saw the bronze square tripod, he recognized it right away. It was the hell suppression tripod. Or rather, it was the initial appearance of the hell suppression tripod. If the bronze square tripod was the hell suppression tripod, the identity of the monk was obvious. It was the infinite Great Emperor. The martial Tao prime body had never seen the infinite Great Emperor before. He had never expected that he would be able to see the true appearance of the infinite Great Emperor one day. Although the 2 true bodies were millions of kilometers apart, they were shocked the moment they saw the monk. Su Zimo had never expected this powerful great emperor who was said to suppress countless evil and was even willing to transform into a purgatory to look like this. The monk had a warm gaze and looked extremely amiable. After the monk descended with the bronze square tripod, he was slightly stunned when he saw the hell suppression tripod at the side. Thereafter, he looked at the martial Tao prime body with a hint of realization in his eyes. Let's end it. The monk smiled gently and bowed slightly to the 7 thunder phantoms not far away, saying softly. Immediately after, the monk's body exploded and released an incomparably terrifying power that swept in all directions, pulling all 7 figures in. There was no anger, indignance, hatred, or surprise on the faces of the 7 phantoms. On the contrary, the 7 phantoms looked at the martial Tao prime body with a hint of admiration and relief. Immediately after, the 7 phantoms faded and dissipated into the world. The power did not weaken and surged into the clouds, dissipating the tribulation clouds in the skies. Everything returned to normalcy and the world regained peace. The scene earlier on seemed surreal, as though it was an illusion. The martial Tao prime body stood on the spot in silence. A long time later, he gradually snapped out of his stupor and heaved a sigh of relief. Chapter 2384, 2384 There's no future for you. 2384 There's no future for you. Although the heavenly tribulation was over, this battle was not over yet. Watch out. When Yang Beichen and the others saw the situation behind the martial Tao prime body, their expressions changed as they warned hurriedly. Shameless. Jiyu Tongyu cursed, these people are trying to take advantage of the situation. Yang Zui and Fairy Purple River brought the fiends and made a comeback, charging towards the martial Tao prime body. In the blink of an eye, they arrived before him. Even without the reminder of Yang Beichen and the others, the spirit perception of the martial Tao prime body had long sensed hostility. Oh! Oh! The sound of a sharp weapon tearing through the air was ear-piercing. The martial Tao prime body did not turn around and punched in reverse. After the 10th tribulation, there was not much flesh left on his fist, it was almost all bones. However, that punch still possessed an unstoppable might that could destroy the world. Clang! When the sharp weapon collided with the fist of the martial Tao prime body, the sound of metal clashing echoed and sparks flew. It was a weapon similar to a spear. However, there were sharp hooks at the tip of the spear. This was Yang Zui's pure yang spirit treasure, heart-piercing hook. It was said that the heart-piercing hook was a replica of the weapon of King Yama of Hell. By piercing it into the chest, it could conveniently draw out the heart, causing the blood chi of the cultivator to deteriorate, and it would be difficult for cultivators struck by it to recover. A look of surprise flashed through the depths of Yang Zui's eyes. He had not expected that the martial Tao prime body would be able to defend against his pure yang spirit treasure despite not having any flesh left. Yang Zui did not know at all that the foundation of the true martial Tao body was his Tao bones. Even the 10th tribulation could not sever his Tao bones. Fairy Purple River hollered softly, desolate Martial's tribulation transcendence has just ended and he's at his weakest. He has already used up all his methods. Everyone, let's join forces and not give him a chance to catch his breath. Swoosh, 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 boom, boom, boom. As Yang Zui attacked, the sentient dharmic treasures, divine powers and secret skills of the fiends descended one after another and attacked the martial Tao prime body. You guys think that you can lay your hands on me? The martial Tao prime body surveyed his surroundings and his eyes were deep. 2 balls of flames burned in his eyes, but his silver mask was cold. Suddenly, under the gazes of the martial Tao prime body, a heat wave spread from the bodies of the fiends. Immediately after, scarlet flames burst forth from the bodies of the fiends and engulfed their bodies instantly, creating a raging fire. The red lotus karmic fire burned karma. In the blink of an eye, many perfected fiends were burned to the point where their flesh split open and red lotus flowers appeared on their skin in a strangely beautiful manner. Ah! 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 The fiends let out tragic cries. The higher the cultivation realm of a cultivator, the deeper the karma they would be tainted and the stronger the karmic flames that would burn. In that short period of time, dozens of perfected fiends were burned to death by the karmic flames and died on the spot. The divine powers and secret skills released by the fiends that were burned by the karmic flames dissipated before they could descend. When the sentient dharmic treasures struck the martial Tao prime body, they did not have much strength left and bounced off, scattering on the ground. Cultivation was a heaven-defying act. No matter who it was, who wouldn't be tainted by karma if they could cultivate to this point, whose hands wouldn't be stained with countless blood. Fairy Purple River had harmed countless women and children in order to cultivate her evil cultivation techniques. She was even more sinful and was entangled by negative karma. The red lotus karmic fire dealt the greatest damage to her. Desolate Marshal! Desolate Marshal! Fairy Purple River shrieked hysterically. As though she had gone mad, she tore at her clothes continuously, wanting to extinguish the flames on her body. However, the karmic flames on her body intensified and surged into the skies, forming a gigantic pillar of flames. Karmic flames burned on Yang Zui's body as well. However, they did not grow stronger after he suppressed them. Break! 2 beams of light flowed out from Yang Zui's yin-yang eyes. One was black and the other was white. Instantly, they covered his body and extinguished the karmic flames completely. Yang Zui was the supreme perfected fiend after all, and a mere karmic flame was not a threat to him. I'll fight you to the death. On the other side, Fairy Purple River suddenly let out a tragic roar. Surrounded by the karmic flames, she bit the tip of her tongue and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. At the same time, she released her secret skill and purple-red blood burst forth from her body with an incomparably nauseating stench. Buzz! Buzz! The purple-red blood splashed on the karmic flames and let out a sound as green smoke billowed. The karmic flames were extinguished rapidly. In the green smoke, Fairy Purple River's hair was disheveled and her clothes were tattered. She seemed to have aged instantly and was in her twilight years. Her face was filled with wrinkles like an old lady and there was no hint of youth or beauty left. Fairy Purple River glared at the martial Tao prime body hatefully and grit her teeth. Desolate Marshal, I'll remember you for destroying my cultivation. In the future, I'll definitely have you return it tenfold. Before Fairy Purple River could finish, the martial Tao prime body shook his head gently and interrupted her, saying indifferently, "Don't think too much. There's no future for you." The moment he said that, the aura of the martial Tao prime body changed drastically and his gaze turned sinister. Phew! Suddenly, a ball of black flames appeared beneath the feet of the martial Tao prime body. A sinister wind blew and the black flames spread rapidly in all directions, sweeping in all directions. From afar, it formed a gigantic black fire lotus. Instantly, Yang Zui, Fairy Purple River and the remaining fiends were enveloped. The black flames distorted the surrounding space and the fiends tried to release teleportation, but to no avail, they could not escape. Hellfire! The flames did not feel scorching at all. Instead, they were sinister and cold, containing the painful will of millions of living beings that no one could withstand. The fiends were already severely injured by the karmic flames. Now that they were engulfed by hellfire, they could no longer withstand it. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 perfected fiends were burned into black ashes and their essence spirits were destroyed. In less than 10 breaths, the remaining perfected fiends would be buried here. Fairy Purple River lost the essence blood that she had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years in order to extinguish the karmic flames. Now that she was faced with the hellfire, she was no longer able to resist and was reduced to ashes as well, dead. Her mystic yin mother-child banner was completely crippled after being burned by the karmic flames and hellfire. Countless phantoms of children and women broke free from the banner. However, this time round, the faces of the children and women were no longer menacing or filled with hatred. Instead, they were filled with the joy of freedom. In the raging flames, countless women carried their children and bowed deeply in the direction of the martial Tao prime body with endless gratitude on their faces. If not for the two flames, Fairy Purple River would not have died and all of them would have been enslaved by her forever. Without their own consciousness, they would have done evil everywhere. But now that Fairy Purple River was dead and the mystic yin mother-child banner was destroyed, the children and women were finally free. Countless mothers and children were reunited and would head to the netherworld to enter reincarnation. Amitabha. When Mingzhen saw that, he chanted the Buddhist proclamation softly and chanted the Ksitagarbha Bodhisattva Sutra to purify the vengeful spirits and help them free themselves. Chapter 2385 Who would dare claim to be supreme? 2385 Who would dare claim to be supreme? Yang Zui was helpless when he saw Fairy Purple River die. He could barely fend for himself against the impact of hellfire. Splash! The sound of blood qi rumbling could be heard from Yang Zui's body as a tsunami surge. However, he could not suppress the impact of the hellfire with his blood qi alone. Yang Zui endured the pain and torture in his body and channeled his blood qi to its limits. Behind him, a tall figure with a 9 crown on his head appeared. He wore a wide-sleeved robe and sat upright, wielding a weapon that was extremely similar to the heart-piercing hook. Beside him was a gigantic blood-stained guillotine. After the phantom descended, it was filled with a sinister and terrifying aura. Although it was only sitting there, it exuded a supreme might. This was Yang Zui's bloodline phenomenon, the legendary King Yama of Hell. The moment the Yama phantom descended, the skies darkened and the hellfire in Yang Zui's body was completely suppressed. It flickered and looked like it was about to extinguish. With the help of his bloodline phenomenon, Yang Zui's aura surged as he shouted, "Desolate Marshal, your combat strength might be superior to mine. However, you must be dreaming if you think that you can kill a supreme perfected fiend. Is that so?" The Martial Tao Prime Body replied casually. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and took a deep breath. Swish! An endless stream of heaven and earth essence qi surged towards his true Martial Tao body as though it was corporeal. Mysterious runes shone on his Tao body as his flesh regrew rapidly. In just a few breaths, the flesh of the Martial Tao Prime body had already recovered and he changed into a brand new purple robe. Yang Zui's expression changed. He suddenly realized that Desolate Marshal might not have become much weaker after the tribulation transcendence. Instead, he might have become even stronger. Even the legendary non-existent 10th tribulation could not severely injure this person's foundation. The bloodline of the Martial Tao Prime body circulated and was pushed to its limits instantly. When he underwent the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, he had already released his bloodline phenomenon, the heaven and earth furnace. The interval between them was too short and he could not release it again. Behind the Martial Tao Prime body, a gigantic living being rose slowly. It was bathed in scorching red lava and resembled a dragon and phoenix. It had a dragon's head and phoenix's tail and the claws beneath it were menacing and sharp, lifelike. On the back of the living being was a pair of wings that were scarlet like flames. They flapped gently and were filled with a terrifying aura. The living being looked down at Yang Zui with a cold gaze, as though it was looking at an ant. For some unknown reason, Yang Zui felt a fear that came from the depths of his soul and even his bloodline gradually calmed down. This is... A legend flashed through Yang Zui's mind and his expression changed as he exclaimed, "Taboo Dragon Phoenix." The bloodline phenomenon was the Taboo Dragon Phoenix. After the Martial Tao Prime body smelted the Dragon Phoenix true body, he inherited the Dragon Phoenix bloodline as well and had long mastered the bloodline phenomenon. However, he had an even stronger bloodline phenomenon like the Heaven and Earth Furnace and had almost never used the Dragon Phoenix phenomenon. Now, against Yang Zui's bloodline phenomenon, the Martial Tao Prime body summoned the Taboo Dragon Phoenix. Even against the legendary King Yama of Hell, the Dragon Phoenix Taboo was not disadvantaged in terms of aura and might. On the contrary, Yang Zui's blood qi was suppressed. Since his bloodline had calmed down, the bloodline phenomenon behind Yang Zui swayed slightly and showed signs of dissipating. Yang Zui jolted awake and realized that he could not show weakness at this moment. Otherwise, he would suffer a crushing defeat. Just as he was about to activate his bloodline and prepare to fight with all his might, the taboo dragon phoenix behind the martial Tao prime body roared and charged over. The dragon phoenix true body charged towards the Yama phenomenon. The Yama phenomenon did not show any weakness either. Waving the heart-piercing hook with one hand, he raised his gigantic guillotine with the other and fought against the taboo dragon phoenix. Poof! 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 Although it was only a fight between two bloodline phenomenons, it was earth-shaking and was not weaker than the commotion of the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation earlier on. Countless scales on the taboo dragon phoenix's body were peeled by the heart-piercing hook and bone-deep wounds were slashed by the guillotine, dripping with blood. The situation of the Yama phantom was even worse. It was almost torn apart by the taboo dragon phoenix and every single wound burned with the dragon phoenix flames that could not be extinguished. In a flash, the martial Tao prime body strode forward and punched Yang Zui. Yang Zui spread his arms as well and released dozens of punches instantly, roaring, Yama fiend fists. Bang! Bang! The martial Tao prime body did not dodge or avoid and threw out 2 punches in succession. They were majestic and shattered the force of Yang Zui's fist with ease. No matter what divine powers or secret skills Yang Zui released, the martial Tao prime body punched through everything. He was overwhelming everything with brute force. Yang Zui gripped the heart-piercing hook tightly with both hands and stabbed towards the fist of the martial Tao prime body. At the same time, he released his visual technique. 2 beams of light, one black and one white, burst forth from his eyes and spun towards the martial Tao prime body, as though they wanted to engulf him. 2 flames burst forth from the eyes of the martial Tao prime body. Phew! The 2 flames landed on the black and white beams of light and burned furiously. Before he attained greater mastery of the true martial Tao body, the martial Tao technique was not fused into his eyes. Therefore, the visual technique could not cause much damage to Yang Zui. If he had attained greater mastery of the true martial Tao body, when the visual technique was released, the 2 flames could pierce Yang Zui's eyes and burn them. Clang! The heart-piercing hook collided with the fist of the martial Tao prime body. Yang Zui shuddered and felt an unstoppable power surge into his body through the heart-piercing hook. Against that shocking divine power, his organs were shaken violently and shifted. Yang Zui spat out blood. The martial Tao prime body turned his fist into a palm grab and gripped the heart-piercing hook. Exerting strength in his palm, he snatched the heart-piercing hook and stabbed in reverse. The heart-piercing hook pierced Yang Zui's chest and heart instantly. The martial Tao prime body yanked outwards and the heart-piercing slash hooked out a grisly red beating heart. Yang Zui's blood qi deteriorated instantly. The Yama phenomenon behind him dissipated as well. The hellfire did not dissipate the entire time. Initially, Yang Zui could still suppress the impact of the hellfire with his bloodline phenomenon. But now that his blood qi was depleted and his phenomenon dissipated, he could not suppress the hellfire. One after another, black flames surged over and engulfed his body instantly. A chilling intent seeped into his bones and soul. Ah! Yang Zui shrieked tragically and felt pain that he had never endured before. I'm the supreme perfected fiend, number 1 of the perfected fiend ranking. I won't be defeated. Yang Zui roared hysterically and was already in a daze from the hellfire. Who would dare claim to be supreme as long as I'm in the fiend domain? The martial Tao prime body looked at Yang Zui, who was struggling and screaming beneath his feet, and said coldly, "Who would dare to claim to be supreme as long as I'm around?" When he heard that, Yang Zui was shocked and sobered up instantly. Suddenly, a sense of helplessness surged in the depths of his heart. It was almost despairing. Who would dare to claim to be supreme as long as I'm around? Those words suffocated him. What a bold claim. Right then, a shout sounded from afar. Chapter 2386, 2386 Half-Step Grotto Heaven. 2386 Half-Step Grotto Heaven. Not far away, a cold man in black armor flew through the air with dozens of cultivators behind him. There were 3 perfected fiend experts and the rest were heaven immortals. Under the hell suppression tripod, Jiyu Tongyu recognized the background of these people and hurriedly sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness to remind the martial Tao prime body, Sect Master Desolate Martial, watch out. These should be cultivators of the Black Fiend sect. Black Fiend sect is a heaven-grade faction in the heartland of the Fiend domain. It's said that Sect Master Fiend Celestial Black Heaven has already cultivated to the peak of Grotto Heaven and is extremely strong. He's an overlord of the heartland. Black Fiend sect. Yang Zui, who was on the brink of despair, recognized the group of them right away when he saw their attire and the badge on their waists. A look of hope flashed through his eyes. Save me. Fellow Taoists of Black Fiend sect, please save me, Yang Zui said hurriedly. The martial Tao prime body raised his head and glanced at the group of people walking over. He ignored them and merely said indifferently, nobody can save you today. Before his sentence was finished, the martial Tao prime body raised his hand gently and a scarlet flame burst forth from his fingertip, piercing into Yang Zui's glabella like a sharp sword. Stop. When the leader of Black Fiend sect saw the martial Tao prime body raise his hand, he shouted hurriedly to stop the latter. However, it was too late. Yang Zui's glabella was pierced and his consciousness was burned. His essence spirit was destroyed and he died on the spot. How dare you? From Black Fiend sect, a perfected fiend stood out and pointed at the martial Tao prime body, shouting, Protector Zongyang has already told you to stop, didn't you hear him? You must have a death wish. Another perfected fiend narrowed his eyes and strode forward with a murderous expression. The leader of Black Fiend sect, the man named Zongyang, raised his hand slightly and stopped the 2 perfected fiends behind him from advancing. A look of pity flashed through Zongyang's eyes as he looked at Yang Zui's corpse. No matter what, Yang Zui was once the supreme perfected fiend and had the highest chance of entering the Grotto Heaven realm. If he could save Yang Zui and make the latter submit to Black Fiend sect, he would definitely become a great help to the sect master. Now that he was dead, it was a pity. However, since the purple-robed man with the silver mask could kill Yang Zui, it meant that he was even stronger than Yang Zui. If he could subdue this person, it would make up for the loss of Yang Zui's death. Only, Zongyang's spirit consciousness scanned the martial Tao prime body multiple times but could not see through the latter's background. However, when the martial Tao prime body attacked earlier on and the remnant aura on the battlefield, he could roughly deduce that the purple-robed man should be a perfected one-realm cultivator. Zongyang took another look at Feng Kantian who was breaking through beneath the hell suppression tripod and thought to himself, the sect master is truly amazing. Before Feng Kantian even broke through successfully, he sensed an abnormal fluctuation coming from here. Feng Kantian was at the critical point of his breakthrough and Zongyang did not disturb him. If Feng Kantian succeeded in his breakthrough, he would take out the sect master badge of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven and bring Feng Kantian back. I'm Zongyang, a protector of Black Fiend sect. Zongyang looked at the martial Tao prime body and asked in a deep voice, what's your name? Desolate Martial. The martial Tao prime body replied casually and did not say anything more. Turning around, he tidied up the battlefield and put away the Tao fruits of Yang Zui, Fairy Purple River and the others. The Tao fruits contained their respective dharmic Taos and the essence of their cultivation. Tao fruits were great tonics for any perfected one-realm cultivators. They were rare cultivation resources and were the most precious. The martial Tao prime body smelted all dharmic arts and Tao fruits were of great help to him as well. Furthermore, refining those Tao fruits could also refine the true martial Tao body. As a half-step Grotto Heaven expert, it was already useless for Zongyang to devour and refine Tao fruits. However, the eyes of the 3 perfected fiends behind him lit up with greed. Protector, look. A perfected fiend said softly. Zongyang's expression was indifferent and he was in no hurry. After the martial Tao prime body collected all the Tao fruits, Zongyang said, Desolate Martial, hand over the Tao fruits and the few pure Yang spirit treasures to me. You can keep the other treasures for yourself. Oh! The martial Tao prime body raised his brow slightly. You don't understand. Zongyang's lips curled into a cold sneer as he declared loudly, the entire world belongs to the king and your location belongs to the territory of Black Fiend Sec. All the treasures in the territory belong to Black Fiend sect, and anyone who obtains them will have to hand them over. The fact that I didn't ask you to hand over all the treasures you obtained is already a special gift for you." The martial Dao Prime body was expressionless as he asked, "And if I refuse?" Zhong Yang laughed. The 3 perfected fiends and dozens of heaven immortals behind him roared in laughter as well. Did this perfected fiend before them want to go against a massive entity like Black Fiend sect? That was akin to striking a stone with an egg, a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Do you really think that you're invincible just because you killed Yang Zui and the others? Zhong Yang walked towards the martial Dao Prime body and shook his head. Seems like it's time to dampen your spirit and let you see who's the true master of this territory. Zhong Yang strode forward and attacked first. Suddenly, a pitch-black iron truncheon appeared in his palm and smashed towards the head of the martial Dao Prime body. The truncheon was extremely powerful and ferocious. The martial Dao Prime body did not dodge or avoid and punched. Bang! The iron truncheon struck the fist of the martial Dao Prime body with a dull sound of defeat. The martial Dao Prime body frowned slightly and took half a step back. The void behind Zhong Yang caved in slightly. However, no grotto heaven appeared. There was only a blurry phantom of a grotto heaven. A half-step grotto heaven. Over the years, the martial Dao Prime body had browsed through many ancient books and secret skills. There were detailed records of the half-step grotto heaven. To be precise, a half-step grotto heaven could not be considered as a realm of its own. When a Dao fruit shatters, the immense power released could be used to break through the void outside of the body, opening up a chamber that could reach the heavens. However, the process was filled with danger and uncertainty. If the Dao fruit was not strong enough and the Dharmic Dao was not condensed enough, there was a high chance that the Dao fruit would shatter and fail to open up a grotto heaven. If the Dao fruit was shattered without any grotto heaven formed, that would be equivalent to one's entire cultivation being destroyed overnight. Therefore, during the breakthrough process, if a cultivator's strength is depleted and they sensed that something was amiss and they only had a slim chance of opening up a grotto heaven, they could choose to settle for second best. They could make use of the power produced by the shattered Dao fruit to condense a grotto heaven phantom. That could be considered as having taken a half step into the grotto heaven realm, and the cultivator would have already come into contact with the power of the grotto heaven as well. That was the half-step grotto heaven. There were 2 benefits to a half-step grotto heaven. First, because one had already come into contact with the grotto heaven realm, their lifespans could increase exponentially to more than 1,000,000 years. Second, a half-step grotto heaven could release a trace of grotto heaven power. Although it was only a trace, in terms of strength, it surpassed true essence and could crush perfected one-realm expert. However, there was also a single reason why many cultivators refused to choose the half-step grotto heaven realm. If they chose to settle for second best and stayed at the half-step grotto heaven realm, they would never be able to advance to the true grotto heaven realm. That was because the Dao fruit was already shattered and turned into a grotto heaven phantom. The cultivators would not have sufficient strength to support themselves to open up another chamber that led to the heavens. Therefore, although there was no heavenly tribulation when cultivators tried to break through to the grotto heaven realm, it was accompanied by immense danger. They could either choose the half-step grotto heaven realm and have no hope of being conferred the title of king for the rest of their lives. Or, they could focus on breaking through the barrier of the grotto heaven realm without retreating. If they failed, their cultivation would be destroyed and they would fall from grace, becoming one with the masses. Chapter 2387, 2387 Suppress All. 2387 Suppress All. Zhong Yang of the half-step grotto heaven realm had already used a trace of grotto heaven power when he attacked earlier on. The true martial Dao body was only at lesser mastery and was slightly inferior in terms of strength. That was the reason why the martial Dao Prime body was forced to retreat a half-step. This did not mean that Zhong Yang could threaten the martial Dao Prime body. Right now, the martial Dao Prime body had just passed the true martial heavenly tribulation and fought against Yang Zui and the others. His trump cards were almost depleted. If he was in his peak condition, the martial Dao Prime body could release his bloodline phenomenon and summon the heaven and earth furnace to refine Zhong Yang's grotto heaven phantom directly. Oh! When Zongyang saw that the martial Tao prime body merely took a half step back, he was surprised as well and frowned. "You're actually able to defend against my truncheon? You do have some tricks up your sleeves. Protector, we'll help you." The three perfected fiends stood out right away. Their eyes were red as they looked at the martial Tao prime body and charged over in different directions. The martial Tao prime body had hundreds of Tao fruits on him, and whoever could kill him would have a reason to ask for more. The remaining dozens of heaven immortals waved their flags excitedly to support. Zongyang propped up the grotto heaven phantom behind him and charged forward once more with the pitch-black iron truncheon. "A half-step grotto heaven wants to set me back." The spirit consciousness of the martial Tao prime body moved and he shouted, "Suppress." The hell suppression tripod at the side suddenly flew over. Under the control of the spirit consciousness of the martial Tao prime body, it descended from the skies and released a powerful force that suppressed down. The hell suppression tripod was the key used by the infinite great emperor to suppress Avicii in the past. One could imagine how terrifying the suppression power of that gigantic tripod was. Sanskrit circulated within the hell suppression tripod endlessly and was incomparably sacred. The might of the four sacred souls emanated from outside the tripod wall. Before the tripod descended, countless lights flowed down like a waterfall. Zongyang's heart skipped a beat and his expression changed. Under the envelopment of the hell suppression tripod, the pressure was ubiquitous and he felt suffocated, unable to move an inch, let alone attack Su Zimo. Zongyang switched from offense to defense hurriedly and raised the pitch-black iron truncheon above his head, wanting to use it to defend against the hell suppression tripod. Boom! Zongyang's body shuddered and his body shrank as his feet sank into the ground. The tremendous force almost crushed his body. Under the suppression of the hell suppression tripod, the pitch-black iron truncheon curved clearly in the middle. Furthermore, the magnitude was increasing. Zongyang's face flushed red and he did not dare to let go at all. If he let go, he would be smashed into sludge by the hell suppression tripod. "Protector!" The three perfected fiends exclaimed and attacked one after another when they saw that. "Go!" The martial Tao prime body willed. The four sacred souls flew out from the hell suppression tripod and the azure dragon sacred soul, vermilion bird sacred soul and white tiger sacred soul charged towards the three perfected fiend. The moment the three perfected fiends attacked, their divine powers and secret skills were dissipated by the three sacred souls before they could even land on the martial Tao prime body. After the true martial heavenly tribulation, the combat strength of the four sacred souls had already reached the peak of the perfected one realm. The three perfected fiends were no match for them. In just a few breaths, the three perfected fiends were forced to retreat in defeat. As though it was intentional, the three perfected fiends were purged continuously by the three sacred souls and retreated to the radius of the hell suppression tripod before long. Under the suppression of the hell suppression tripod and the tripod, even the half-step grotto heaven Zongyang could only hold out bitterly. The three perfected fiends could not defend against it at all. Thud. The three perfected fiends knelt on the ground and spat out blood. Their faces were pale and they could not move at all. Initially, the dozens of heaven immortals were cheering excitedly. Unexpectedly, the situation changed drastically and Zongyang and the other three were suppressed by the martial Tao prime body. Dozens of heaven immortals dispersed, prepared to escape back to Black Fiend sect to seek help. However, everyone suddenly realized that they were already in a deep and dark ocean with no end in sight. Not far away, a gigantic spirit turtle floated in the depths of the sea and watched their every move with a pair of cold eyes. If anyone made any strange movements, the spirit turtle would surface and create raging tides that threatened to devour them. The black tortoise sacred soul was also at the peak of the perfected one realm and could deal with dozens of heaven immortals with ease. The dozens of heaven immortals were rather tactful and did not dare to harbor any designs, merely standing on the spot. In the blink of an eye, everyone from Black Fiend sect, including Zongyang who was a half-step grotto heaven, was suppressed by the martial Tao prime body. Actually, if the martial Tao prime body wanted to kill these people, he could do it with a single thought. It was not difficult for him to kill a half-step grotto heaven with the help of the hell suppression tripod. However, the martial Tao prime body had some reservations. He was not worried about himself, but Feng Kantien who was breaking through at the side. Black Fiend sect was a heaven-grade sect after all. If he killed Zhong Yang and the others, there was a high chance that Black Fiend sect's Grotto Heaven realm experts would be alarmed. If a Fiend King descended, many changes would definitely happen. The martial Dao Prime body could tell that Feng Santian's breakthrough was at the most critical moment and nothing must go wrong. Therefore, the martial Dao Prime body merely suppressed Zhong Yang and the others and waited for the final outcome of Feng Santian's breakthrough. Boom! 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 Another gigantic shadow floated over from the skies. Dark clouds covered the skies as lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the firmament. This time round, the dark clouds hovered above Feng Santian's head and electric arcs descended from the skies, surging into his body. Feng Kantien accumulated his final bit of strength and was prepared to fight with all his might. Initially, he had no chance of entering the Grotto Heaven realm with his Dao fruit shattered. However, he did not give up after 400,000 years in the 10 absolute hell. Instead, he comprehended another path and condensed a sea of lightning in his consciousness. Even so, he still did not have the chance to advance to the Grotto Heaven realm. This time round, when the martial Dao Prime body underwent tribulation transcendence, he experienced the baptism of the heavenly tribulation once more. He even experienced the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation personally and obtained immense inspiration. The 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation was something that might not appear even in 1,000,000 years. This was an unimaginable opportunity for Feng Kantien and was even more precious than any ancient ruin or emperor's inheritance. Under the baptism of the heavenly tribulation this time round, Feng Kantien gradually comprehended the might of the heavenly tribulation and the wrath of thunder. Finally, he sensed the opportunity to advance to the Grotto Heaven realm. A blazing sea of lightning floated out slowly from Feng Santian's glabella. The sea of lightning bathed in the lightning in the skies and its power rose continuously. However, under Feng Santian's control, the size of the sea of lightning gradually shrank and formed a water droplet. Although it was only the size of a fingernail, the water droplet contained the sea of lightning. Electricity intertwined within and was blinding, possessing a shuddering power. Feng Santian's Dharmic Tao was condensed in that water droplet. That single water droplet seemed like it could destroy a world. After a long time, the power in the water droplet had already accumulated to its peak. Feng Kantien stood up suddenly and his black hair danced. His eyes were widened in rage and his aura was torrential as he hollered, "Shatter! Boom!" Suddenly, the water droplet exploded and the endless power accumulated within was released. Chapter 2388, 2388 Grotto Heaven King. 2388 Grotto Heaven King. Boom! 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 The water droplet exploded and a tremendous power surged into the void, causing it to cave in and be filled with crack. The transformation did not stop and the void was still caved in, revealing a chamber that surged with blinding electric arcs. The Grotto Heaven was starting to take shape. One end of the Grotto Heaven was connected to Feng Kantien while the other end reached the heavens and connected to the 3 realms. At this point of his cultivation, Feng Kantien could make use of the Grotto Heaven to absorb heaven and earth essence chi wildly. He no longer required cultivation resources such as essence spirit stones. A Grotto Heaven was the emblem of a king of the upper world. Only those with Grotto Heavens were qualified to be conferred kingship. A Grotto Heaven could be considered a life-changing transformation for cultivators. They would experience a remarkable improvement in almost every aspect. The power of a Grotto Heaven far surpassed the power of true essence and was a manifestation of a higher level of power. For someone like Zhong Yang who had cultivated to the half-step Grotto Heaven realm, with just a trace of Grotto Heaven power, he was able to fight against the true martial Dao body of the martial Dao Prime body. If one could cultivate a true Grotto Heaven, that power could be considered apocalyptic and their combat strength would rise to another level. During normal cultivation, heaven and earth essence chi would surge into the Grotto Heaven. After the baptism of the Dharmic Tao in the Grotto Heaven, it would be purged and become incomparably pure. By the time it surged into the body of the cultivator, they would only require half the effort to cultivate. The dharmic Tao that nurtured cultivators in the grotto heaven contained pure heaven and earth essence chi and could even nourish their destiny dharmic treasures, transforming them into grotto heaven spirit treasure. In a battle between kings, with the help of the grotto heaven, heaven and earth essence chi was almost endless. They could fight and replenish at the same time. Upon entering the grotto heaven realm, one could even tear through the void and cross thousands of miles. At the very least, one could travel through a world at will without encountering the danger of the black hole in the starry skies. The only way they could encounter the black hole was if they crossed worlds. After all, worlds were way too far apart and were filled with stars and oceans as well as many unknown places in the middle. Feng Kantien stood in midair and roared into the skies, venting the emotions that he had suppressed for a long time over the years. There was indignance, hatred, and anger. However, in the end, he was plotted against and fell from grace, imprisoned for 400,000 years without seeing the light of day. Nobody knew how he managed to survive the past 400,000 years. Even in that cruel environment and despair, he did not give up. Finally, he managed to break free with the arrival of Su Zimo. But now, he had finally entered the grotto heaven realm and became an immortal king. However, everything was delayed by a full 400,000 years. Crack! As though it could sense the rage in Feng Xantian's heart, the thunder grotto heaven let out a deafening and shuddering sound of thunder rumbling as well. Feng Xantian's howl reverberated through the world accompanied by rumbling thunder. The wrath of thunder caused all living beings to go silent. Apart from shock, Yang Beichen, Ming Zhan, Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo felt a sense of joy. Heavenly Wolf blinked his eyes as though he recalled something. His eyes lit up and he looked excited. Master. Heavenly Wolf looked at the martial Dao Prime Body who was still suppressing Zhong Yang and the others not far away and suddenly shouted. What is it? The martial Dao Prime Body glanced sideways. Heavenly Wolf pointed at Feng Kantien who was in midair and said excitedly, there's already a candidate for joy and hatred among the 7 emotions fiend generals. Feng Kantien is way too suitable for as wrath of the 7 emotions. What nonsense is that? The martial Dao Prime Body frowned and hollered. Heavenly Wolf's interest did not diminish as he continued, if we can pull him into the 7 emotions fiend generals, the overall strength of the 7 emotions fiend generals will increase exponentially with an immortal king presiding over everything. Both of you are from Tianhuang mainland, we can definitely discuss it. Heavenly Wolf instigated continuously. The martial Dao Prime Body remained silent and ignored Heavenly Wolf. The 7 emotions fiend generals were under his lead. As for Feng Kantien, he was the palace lord of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Now that he had entered the grotto heaven realm and was already an immortal king, how could he bow down to him? Feng Kantien was indeed suitable as wrath of the 7 emotions, but it did not make sense. Heavenly Wolf tried a few more times. When he saw that the martial Dao Prime Body was silent the entire time, he gave up. Right then, Feng Kantien took a deep breath and his spirit consciousness moved. The thunder grotto heaven behind him gradually disappeared. He had just entered the grotto heaven realm and was not familiar with its control yet. Feng Kantien looked at the martial Dao Prime Body and bowed in thanks. If not for your help, I would have died a long time ago. Zephyr Thunder Palace would have turned into ruins a long time ago as well. I would not have had the chance to enter the grotto heaven realm. Fellow Daoist, you can be considered as the greatest benefactor in my life. However, pausing for a moment, Feng Kantien changed the topic with a conflicted expression. Fellow Daoist, there's something I hope you can reply me. How did you obtain this bronze square tripod? Who did you obtain it from? The martial Dao Prime Body knew what Feng Kantien was thinking. Brother Feng, it's me. The martial Dao Prime Body sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness without concealing his voice. Back when the 2 of them parted ways in the divine firmament immortal domain, they drank strong wine together and addressed one another as brothers. At that time, Feng Zi and perfected immortal burial knight were present as well. Feng Kantien had once said that rules and seniority were bullshit in his eyes. If it was to his liking, he would befriend anyone. If he did not like it, so what if it was an immortal emperor? Feng Kantien was slightly stunned when he heard that voice. Immediately, His eyes were filled with ecstasy as he burst into laughter. Ha 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 ha. Brother, it's really you. Initially, Feng Kantian thought of that guess as well, but he denied it. Now, he was truly certain. Of course, Feng Kantian was certain of one thing: desolate marshal before him was definitely not the same body as Su Zimo of Divine Firmament Mainland. After all, the difference in their methods and dharmic Tao was too great and there was almost no overlap. Now that he knew the identity of the martial Tao prime body, Feng Santian's final worries no longer existed and he was in a great mood. Brother Su, why are you? Given Feng Santian's judgment and experience, he could tell that Su Zimo of the Divine Firmament Immortal domain might be a secret skill like a clone. However, even after he entered the Grotto Heaven realm and became an immortal king, he could not see through the depths of the martial Tao prime body. It's a long story. The martial Tao prime body pondered for a moment and did not explain. Instead, he asked, Brother Feng, how should we deal with these people? Cultivators of Black Fiend sect. Feng Kantian frowned and waved his hand. Tell them to scram. There was no deep feud between them and there was no need to kill them all. The martial Tao prime body nodded and removed the hell suppression tripod. With a single thought, the four sacred souls fused into the tripod once more. Zhong Yang was thoroughly exhausted as he knelt on the ground, panting heavily. He took out a badge slowly from his storage bag and raised it above his head, declaring, Feng Kantian, the sect master has orders for you to set off immediately to meet here. What are you talking about? Feng Santian's expression turned cold. Zhong Yang braced himself and grit his teeth. Feng Kantian, this is a chance given to you by sect master Fiend Celestial Black Heaven. You had better consider it carefully and not fail to appreciate his kindness. Chapter 2389, 2389 Peerless Fiend King. 2389 Peerless Fiend King. Are you threatening me? Feng Santian's gaze was like lightning as he waved his robes. The startling evil spear transformed into a streak of lightning and shot into Zhong Yang's chest, pinning him to the ground. What sort of a character was Feng Kantian? Back in the Divine Firmament Immortal domain, he was fearless and dared to challenge everything. Even after being imprisoned for 400,000 years, he did not bow down. Now that he had entered the Grotto Heaven realm, how could he be controlled and coerced by others? After his body was pierced by the startling evil spear, countless power of thunder surged into his body. Instantly, Zhong Yang's Grotto Heaven phantom collapsed and his entire body trembled continuously, almost convulsing as blood foam spewed from his mouth. Although Zhong Yang was not dead, his cultivation was almost crippled. Foo-foo. Right then, a dry laugh sounded in midair. Immediately after, a crack appeared in the void and a black-cloaked figure walked out. His aura was terrifying and was far above Feng Kantian. The moment that person appeared, the skies darkened. It was the sect master of Black Fiend sect, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven, sect master, Echi. When Zhong Yang saw who it was, he tried his best to raise the badge in his hands, as though he wanted to say something. Your cultivation is crippled. It's useless to keep you. With a cold expression, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven merely glanced at Zhong Yang and the latter's body was gradually shrouded by a black fog. After a few breaths, the black fog dispersed and Zhong Yang turned into a dried corpse, dead. Feng Kantian narrowed his eyes slightly with a grim expression. Let's get straight to the point. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven looked at Feng Kantian and said slowly, You've already entered the Grotto Heaven realm. I'll give you two options. First, you can join Black Fiend sect. I value your potential very much and can let you become the deputy sect master of Black Fiend sect. The second option. Before Fiend Celestial Black Heaven could finish, Feng Kantian waved it off and interrupted, There's no need to say anything more. I won't choose any of your options. I have my own option. Then you are choosing to die. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven's expression darkened as he said coldly. Oh. Feng Kantian opened his palm and the startling evil spear transformed into a streak of lightning, returning to his hand. That action had proven everything. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven smiled. Don't tell me you think that you're qualified to fight me just because you've just entered the Grotto Heaven realm. You've just formed your Grotto Heaven. How much of the Grotto Heaven realm's power can you release? Foam Cantien remained silent. Actually, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven was not wrong. He had just entered the Grotto Heaven realm and had yet to comprehend the power of the Grotto Heaven realm carefully. He could not unleash the combat strength of the Grotto Heaven realm completely and was definitely not a match for Fiend Celestial Black Heaven. Furthermore, even within the Grotto Heaven realm, there were major and minor Grotto Heavens. Ordinary king experts could only condense minor Grotto Heavens. Those that continued cultivating and are able to condense major Grotto Heavens are known as Supreme Kings. He had just formed his Grotto Heaven and what he condensed was only a minor Grotto Heaven. However, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven had been famous for many years and had long condensed a major Grotto Heaven that was far superior to his. Even the startling evil spear in his hands had yet to be nourished and nurtured in Thunder Grotto Heaven and transform into a Grotto Heaven spirit treasure. Even so, Foam Cantien was fearless and his fighting spirit was torrential. Indeed, he had not fully mastered the power of his Grotto Heaven. However, what else was a better opportunity to temper himself than now? The battle against a Supreme Fiend King would allow him to control his Thunder Grotto Heaven faster and familiarize himself with the battles between King. The only thing Foam Cantien was worried about was the Martial Dao Prime Body and the others. Once the battle broke out, he would barely be able to fend for himself and could not protect the Martial Dao Prime Body and the others. As a Supreme Fiend King, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven had countless powerful methods. There was a high probability he could even condense a major Grotto Heaven and envelope all of them. Brother Foam, if you want to fight him, fight with all you've got. Don't worry about us. Right then, the voice of the Martial Dao Prime Body sounded in Foam Cantien's mind. Foam Cantien thought that the Martial Dao Prime Body was merely comforting him. The Martial Dao Prime Body continued, I have methods that can lead the others to break through the void and leave this place to hide. Foam Cantien was shocked and looked at the Martial Dao Prime Body in disbelief. Breaking through the void and leaving was a power that could only be released by a king of the Grotto Heaven realm. Perfected immortals could not do it at all. However, he knew that this was no small matter and the Martial Dao Prime Body would definitely not spout nonsense. In reality, the Martial Dao Prime Body truly could not break through the void and leave this place with his own strength. He needed to make use of the power of the Hell Suppression Tripod to penetrate the void and escape into Avicii through his connection with it, returning to the latter to hide. After ensuring that the Martial Dao Prime Body and the others would not fall into danger, Foam Cantien was relieved. Have you considered it? Fiend Celestial Black Heaven asked slowly. Foam Cantien smiled casually and his gaze intensified. Just as he was about to accept the challenge, a voice sounded in midair on the other side. Black Heaven, you're really too much of a bully. The void split open and a yellow-robed man appeared. He strode over with turbid, yellow eyes that emitted a strange glow. Villa Master Yellow Springs, what are you doing here? A wary look flashed through the depths of Fiend Celestial Black Heaven's eyes when he saw that person. The yellow-robed man glanced at Foam Cantien and was about to speak when he caught sight of the Hell Suppression Tripod in the hands of the Martial Dao Prime Body from the corner of his eye and his pupils constricted. However, the yellow-robed man returned to normal before long and continued, this person entered the Grotto Heaven realm and became a Fiend King. Naturally, I have to come and congratulate him. Me. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven sneered, don't think that I don't know what you're up to. This is the territory of Black Fiend Sect, not Yellow Springs Villa, I know that. The yellow-robed man smiled. I don't want anything in your territory either. However, you can't be in charge of me recruiting Foam Cantien, right? You want to kill him, but I want to save him. That's all. Foam Cantien frowned slightly. After the yellow-robed man appeared, the situation suddenly changed. Furthermore, he did not know the yellow-robed man at all and did not have any relationship with him. Black Heaven Fiend Celestial sneered again, do you think Foam Cantien will submit to you just because you saved him? This person is extremely ambitious and you won't be able to tame him. Right then, another crack appeared in the void and a golden-haired, blue-eyed man walked out. He was tall and was filled with golden light. Godfiend Ridge. When Fiend Celestial Black Heaven and the yellow-robed man saw that person, they frowned. This was the territorial lord of God-Fiend Ridge. He was someone from the god race who cultivated the Fiend Dao and established a faction in the heartland of the Fiend domain. He was extremely famous. The territorial lord of God-Fiend Ridge smiled. If the two of you can't tame him, I can give it a try. Ha ha. Another burst of laughter sounded in midair. A breeze blew past and a fourth Fiend King descended. Feng Kantien established Zephyr Thunder Palace, so he must be specialized in some wind dharmic Dao. In my opinion, why don't you join Wind Fiend Sect? I can impart the Dao personally and raise your combat strength to another level. The sect master of Wind Fiend Sect appeared and said. Black Fiend Sect, Yellow Springs Villa, God Fiend Ridge and Wind Fiend Sect were all heaven-grade factions and all four of them were Supreme Fiend Kings. Although the four Supreme Fiend Kings came from different sects and factions, they only had a single goal for this trip, to subdue Feng Kantien. Chapter 2390, 2390 Battle of Kings. 2390 Battle of Kings. Feng Kantien had a grim expression. He was not a match for a single Supreme Fiend King, let alone the four of them. Brother Su, if the situation is amiss later on, I'll attract their attention. Break through the void and leave this place. Feng Kantien sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. Although I can't defeat them, it won't be easy for the four of them to keep me here either. The martial Dao Prime body nodded slightly and did not reject. Given the current situation, as long as he could escape from this place with Yang Beichen, Ming Zhan and the others, it would be the greatest help to Feng Kantien. Without any worries, Feng Kantien chances of escaping from this place would be much higher. Jiyu Tongyu pondered for a moment and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. From the looks of it, the four Supreme Fiend Kings seem to have the intention of recruiting the Palace Lord. Can we make use of them to kill one another so that we can take advantage of the chaos to leave? It's not that easy. Heavenly Wolf pouted and sent a voice transmission. At this cultivation realm, one can rule over a faction and endless territory. Which of them will be made use of so easily? In midair, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven said slowly, we all want to recruit Feng Kantien, but he's just one person. There's no way he can join four sects and factions at the same time. Don't worry, Feng Kantien. The territorial lord of God-Fiend Ridge had a confident expression and said proudly, as long as you're willing to join God-Fiend Ridge, I can naturally ensure your safety. I can even impart to you some secret skills unique to the God race to help you raise your combat strength. Apart from Fiend Celestial Black Heaven and the sect master of Wind Fiend Sect, even the territorial lord of God-Fiend Ridge made a promise. An expert of the Grotto Heaven realm joining any faction would raise the overall strength by a notch. If perfected immortals and perfected fiends were the pillars of support and hope of the major sects. In that case, immortal kings and fiend kings would be the top experts and titans of the major sects who would determine the limits and future of the sect. Therefore, when they sensed that someone had entered the Grotto Heaven, the four Supreme Fiend Kings arrived right away, wanting to take Feng Kantien under their wing. Foo. Suddenly, the yellow-robed man smiled and shook his head. The three of you make a fuss, but have you asked fellow Daoist Feng for his opinion? In my opinion, given fellow Daoist Feng's boldness, he won't bow down to us. The yellow-robed man had some understanding of what happened to Feng Kantien in the past. How much courage and boldness did that require? How could someone who dared to do such a huge thing bow down so easily? The territorial lord of God-Fiend Ridge shrugged his shoulders gently. Given the current situation, he has to choose between the four of us. Does he have a second option? Of course he has. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven said coldly with a hint of killing intent in his tone. The four Supreme Fiend Kings exchanged glances with a tacit understanding. The second option was death. If none of the four of them could make Feng Kantien submit, the four of them would choose to kill Feng Kantien. They would definitely not allow an expert beyond their control to rise within this territory. Feng Kantien had immense potential. If he was allowed to grow and develop, he would definitely threaten their status in the future and annex and occupy their territory. Therefore, if Feng Kantien chose the second option, the four Supreme Fiend Kings would have to kill him. Feng Kantien, who do you choose to submit to? The yellow-robed man asked. Feng Kantian gripped the startling evil spear in his hands tightly and took a deep breath. I won't submit to any of you. None of you are qualified. Foo foo foo. The yellow-robed man was not surprised and smiled. What did I say? Indeed, he chose the second option. The sect master of Wind Fiend sect frowned. Feng Kantian, do you know what the second option means? There's no need to say anything more. If you want to fight, fight. Feng Kantian shouted with a burning gaze. The territorial lord of Godfiend Ridge shook his head gently with a look of pity in his eyes. He walked towards Feng Kantian. Initially, I didn't want to kill you. However, since you insist on doing so, you can't blame me. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven, the yellow-robed man and the sect master of Wind Fiend sect closed in at the same time. Although it was a pity to kill Feng Kantian, it was not a complete waste for the four of them. Feng Santian's Grotto Heaven contained his Dharmic Tao. After killing Feng Kantian, the four Supreme Fiend Kings could split his Grotto Heaven fragments and fuse them into their Grotto Heavens to strengthen themselves. Bang! Without hesitation, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven summoned his Grotto Heaven. The void behind him collapsed and a gigantic pitch-black cave appeared. It was dark and deep without any light. Under normal circumstances, there was no need for him to do this to a king who had just entered the Grotto Heaven realm. However, at that moment, he was not only facing Feng Kantian, but also the other three Supreme Fiend Kings. The four of them had the same thoughts. They wanted to kill Feng Kantian and snatch his Grotto Heaven to refine. Therefore, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven did not dare to be careless. Bang! The sect master of Wind Fiend sect created his Grotto Heaven as well. Behind him, a Grotto Heaven appeared with a hurricane engulfing within. Sand and rocks flew everywhere with a terrifying might, causing wild winds to roar in the world. Bang! The territorial lord of Godfiend Ridge released his Grotto Heaven. His Grotto Heaven was the most terrifying. It was filled with light and shone with a blinding golden glow, floating behind him like a blazing sun that could not be ignored. The three Supreme Fiend Kings propped up their Grotto Heavens and charged towards Feng Kantian. At the same time, Feng Kantian released his Thunder Grotto Heaven. The size of his Grotto Heaven was clearly much smaller than the three Supreme Fiend Kings. It hovered behind him and could only accommodate his body. As for the Grotto Heavens of the three Supreme Fiend Kings, they were more than 10 times larger than Feng Santian's Grotto Heaven. It was as though they wanted to devour the world and destroy everything. The moment the Thunder Grotto Heaven appeared, it trembled and swayed continuously, letting out creaking sounds. The thunder produced by the Grotto Heaven flickered and could be destroyed at any moment against the pressure of the three Grotto Heavens. The difference was too great. Feng Kantian had just formed his Grotto Heaven and had yet to fully control its power. Even against a single Supreme Fiend King, it was difficult for him to win, let alone the three of them combined. On the other side, although the yellow-robed man walked over as well, he did not attack Feng Kantian. Instead, he said with a smile, "Guys, I'll leave Feng Kantian to you guys. I'll kill this junior first." In a flash, the yellow-robed man turned around and charged towards the martial Dao Prime body. He was indeed here for Feng Kantian. However, he made an unexpected discovery upon arriving here. If he was not wrong, the item in the hands of the purple-robed man with the silver mask should be the legendary weapon of the infinite Great Emperor, the Hell Suppression Tripod. The yellow-robed man was expressionless because of this moment. The attention of the three Supreme Fiend Kings was focused on Feng Kantian and they could not split themselves so no one would fight him for the Hell Suppression Tripod. Chapter 2391 Shocking Retreat. 2391 Shocking Retreat. The martial Dao Prime body had long sensed the killing intent of the yellow-robed man. Before the latter made a move, he activated the Hell Suppression Tripod and smashed it into the void. Boom! There was a loud bang. A crack appeared in the void with a sinister wind that led to an unknown place. The martial Dao Prime body waved his sleeves and released the supreme divine power, Sleeve Universe, to engulf Yang Beichen and the others. He was prepared to enter the spatial tunnel and head to Avicii. Right then, the territorial lord of Godfiend Ridge said, "Feng Kantian, You're way too naive if you think that you can escape from this place despite being surrounded by the three of us. With the encirclement of the three grotto heavens, you won't even have the chance to escape into the void. When he heard that, the martial Tao prime body's heart sank. Just as he was slightly distracted, an incomparably terrifying spirit consciousness fluctuation surged over and arrived instantly, colliding against the Mara mask. The yellow-robed man did not hold back and released his essence spirit secret skill right away. The power of a grotto heaven essence spirit coupled with the essence spirit secret skill was unimaginable and was enough to kill the martial Tao prime body. However, when the essence spirit secret skill struck the Mara mask, it automatically defended. After crossing the true martial heavenly tribulation, the mask was completely controlled by the martial Tao prime body as well. It gained sentience and sensed danger, defending automatically to protect the latter. Ripples appeared on the Mara mask like a lake. Suddenly, a menacing ghost face appeared on the surface of the lake, laughing, crying, joyful, sorrowful, shocked and fearful. It was hair-raising. 7 completely different emotions were revealed on the ghost face: joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, hatred and lust of the 7 emotion. The ghost face seemed to possess a strange demonic power. Cultivators who saw the ghost face would develop mental demons uncontrollably in the depths of their hearts, causing their minds to be in chaos. Although the Mara mask was strong, it could not dispel the essence spirit secret skill of a supreme fiend king. While the Mara mask defended against half of the killing power, the other half charged into the consciousness of the martial Tao prime body through the mask. A wisp of turbid yellow springs water flowed into his consciousness. With the Mara mask to defend for a moment, the martial Tao prime body reacted and released his essence spirit secret skill hurriedly as well. The prime body created the unprecedented martial Tao. However, the dharmic Tao of the true martial realm did not surpass the grotto heaven of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Taos. Due to the limitations of his cultivation realm, the martial spirit of the martial Tao prime body was vastly inferior to the yellow-robed man's essence spirit. Although the essence spirit secret skill was strong, it could not defend against the killing power of a supreme fiend king. In the blink of an eye, the martial spirit fire was extinguished by the yellow springs water. However, after the defense of the Mara mask and the martial spirit fire, the wisp of yellow springs water faded significantly and its strength was greatly reduced. It could not cause fatal damage to the martial spirit of the martial Tao prime body. Splash! The water of yellow springs splashed onto the martial spirit of the martial Tao prime body. A powerful corrosive power corroded the martial spirit continuously. Although the martial spirit was not drowned and killed by the yellow springs water, it was still corroded. The light of the martial spirit dimmed and it emitted a rotting stench. The martial Tao prime body took out a Saraka fruit from his storage bag and swallowed it. The power of the Saraka fruit transformed into streams of milky white sacred light that surged into his consciousness, nourishing the martial spirit and gradually repairing the damage it suffered. At that moment, the martial Tao prime body suddenly realized that there was a strange atmosphere on the battlefield. The yellow-robed man nearly killed him with an essence spirit secret skill. However, he did not make any further moves. Instead, he looked at Su Zimo's face with a wary expression and a hint of fear in the depths of his eyes. On another battlefield, the 3 supreme fiend kings who were initially surrounding Feng Kantien stopped and gradually retreated. As they retreated, the 3 supreme fiend kings glared at the face of the martial Tao prime body with bewildered expressions as well, as though they had discovered something. Feng Kantien panted slightly. When he saw that, he was at a loss, not knowing what happened. Just as his Thunder Grotto heaven was about to be crushed by the 3 supreme fiend kings, the yellow-robed man at the side attacked the martial Tao prime body and released his essence spirit secret skill. When the 3 supreme fiend kings saw that, their expressions changed and they retreated. Mara mask! The yellow-robed man glared at the face of the martial Tao prime body and suddenly said. Upon hearing those words, Fiend Celestial Black Heaven, the sect master of Wind Fiend Sect and the territorial lord of Godfiend Ridge narrowed their eyes and their pupils constricted. How are you related to Emperor Bo Zun? The yellow-robed man asked again. The martial Tao prime body merely looked at the other party calmly without saying anything. He had nothing to do with Emperor Bozun. If they had to be related, it would be more appropriate to say that they were enemies. However, the silence of the martial Tao prime body made the yellow-robed man and the other 3 supreme fiend kings feel even more unfathomable. Not long ago, the news of Emperor Bozun's rebirth had already spread to the fiend domain. The fiends were in an uproar and were shocked, feeling a long-gone fear in their heart. In the past, Emperor Bozun ruled over the fiend domain and was invincible. He was supreme and could command all fiends, no one dared to disobey him. After Emperor Bozun died, the emperors of the fiend domain fought one another and no one could suppress the fiends anymore. Thereafter, they fell into chaos and split up, lasting till now. Back then, if not for the fact that more than 20 emperors of the 9 firmament immortal domain and the pure land of bliss joined forces to set up an ambush and send Emperor Bozun into Avicii, the entire heavenly world would have been under Emperor Bozun's control. The combined forces of more than 20 emperors could not kill Emperor Bozun, and they even had to make use of Avicii to suppress the latter. It was clear how capable Emperor Bozun was in the past. And now, Emperor Bozun had escaped from Avicii. Even Avicii could not trap him. It was said that after Emperor Bozun escaped, he killed 4 heavenly kings of the pure land of bliss on Taiwei Mountain. Thereafter, he escaped into the fiend domain and disappeared without a trace, never appearing again. Everyone knew that Emperor Bozun would definitely make a comeback after escaping. Given Emperor Bozun's capabilities, he would definitely be able to unify the fiend domain once more. However, after 1,000 years, there was no news of Emperor Bozun, as though he had vanished from the fiend domain. All the fiends knew that Emperor Bozun was definitely in the fiend domain, but no one knew where he was. But now, the Mara mask of Emperor Bozun had reappeared before the 4 supreme fiend kings. What did that mean? The 4 supreme fiend kings could not see through the martial Tao prime body and felt that there was a hint of mystery about this person the entire time. Now, the 4 supreme fiend kings were enlightened. This person was definitely backed by Emperor Bozun, who had vanished. Emperor Bozun was probably the only one who could nurture such a mysterious and powerful cultivator. At this moment, Emperor Bozun might be standing in a corner, watching everything quietly. At that thought, the 4 supreme fiend kings could not help but feel a chill run down their spines and break out in cold sweat. Farewell. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven cupped his fists towards the martial Tao prime body and said before disappearing into the void without turning back. The sect master of Wind Fiend Sect and territorial lord of Godfiend Ridge followed closely behind and tore through the void, escaping from this place. IIT's all a misunderstanding. We'll meet again if we're fated. The yellow-robed man cupped his fists towards the martial Tao prime body and chuckled dryly before turning to flee into the void as well. In the blink of an eye, the 4 supreme fiend kings fled and vanished without a trace. Chapter 2392, 2392 Heavenly Wrath. 2392 Heavenly Wrath. Feng Kantien was stunned. A moment later, he snapped out of his stupor and burst into laughter. The 4 supreme fiend kings came with a menacing intent to think that they would flee after recognizing the Mara mask worn by the martial Tao prime body. Apart from the few of them, all other cultivators and living beings around Zephyr Thunder Palace had already fled without a trace when they sensed that the situation was bad. Now that the danger was averted, the martial Tao prime body waved his sleeves and released Yang Beichen and the others. When they saw what happened outside from the sleeves of the martial Tao prime body, they could not help but smile and feel the joy of surviving a calamity. Nobody expected that not only did they defend against the encirclement of the million-strong fiend army such as Supreme Perfected Fiend Yang Zui, they even negated the killing intent of the 4 Supreme Fiend Kings. Not only that, Feng Kantien had already successfully entered the Grotto Heaven realm and became an immortal king. Although Zephyr Thunder Palace was almost destroyed, as long as Feng Kantien was still around and news of today's battle spread, Zephyr Thunder Palace would definitely be rebuilt at the fastest speed. Furthermore, with an immortal king holding down the fort, Zephyr Thunder Palace could already be considered as a heaven-grade sect and its strength would increase significantly. Heavenly Wolf said excitedly, "If I had known that my old master's name would be so useful, we should have just revealed your Jidu saber, old Yang." Yang Beichen shook his head gently in disapproval. Although those people recognized the Mara mask, they might not recognize the Jidu saber. Once activated, the Mara mask would reveal a ghost face that was extremely terrifying and would be unforgettable. However, the Jidu saber did not have any obvious characteristics. Or rather, given his cultivation realm, he could not unleash the true might of the Jidu saber. Brother Su, I won't continue thanking you. Arriving before the martial Dao prime body, Feng Kantian took out 2 jars of strong wine and handed one to the latter with a smile. Let's just drink. All right. The martial Dao prime body received the wine jar and removed his Mara mask, drinking the strong wine with Feng Kantian. There were no outsiders here. They were either old friends of Tianhuang mainland or were once indebted to him. There was no need to hide the identity of the martial Dao prime body from them. Everyone had long known his identity. Only Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo were surprised and their eyes were filled with disbelief. Fellow Taoists, how have you been? The martial Dao prime body smiled gently and did not hide his voice. Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo exclaimed, "How can we be left out from drinking?" When Heavenly Wolf smelled the fragrance of wine, he hurried over and drooled, muttering, "Although we didn't have to do anything, we're in a celebratory mood as well. Come, let's drink together." Feng Kantian burst into laughter and took out a few more jars of strong wine to distribute to everyone. In high spirits, Feng Kantian turned to look at Heavenly Wolf and asked with a smile, "Right, what did you mean by the 7 emotions fiend generals just now?" "Ah." Heavenly Wolf felt guilty and smiled embarrassedly. "Nothing much, I was spouting nonsense." "It's fine, tell me." Feng Kantian waved it off. Heavenly Wolf was emboldened by his wine and coughed gently. Tianhuang sect is prepared to look for suitable 7 people to form the 7 emotions fiend generals to expand our territory in the fiend domain. There are already suitable candidates for joy and hatred of the 7 emotions. They are Old Yang and Ming Zhen, the bald little monk. When I saw you break through earlier on, your grotto heaven seemed to contain the might of the heavenly tribulation as well as the wrath of thunder. I thought you were the most suitable as wrath of the 7 emotions, so I tried to get my master to rope you in. Wrath of the 7 emotions. Feng Kantian nodded. From what you said, there's indeed no one more suitable than me. Huh. Heavenly Wolf was stunned. Everyone else was surprised as well and could tell that Feng Kantian seemed to be implying something. Feng Kantian continued, "From this day forth, I'm one of the 7 emotions fiend generals." Palace Lord. Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo hesitated. Feng Kantian was the Palace Lord of Zephyr Thunder Palace after all. Now that he was a 7 emotions fiend general in Tianhuang sect, what about Zephyr Thunder Palace? Furthermore, Feng Kantian was an immortal king. Wasn't it a little condescending for him to just be a 7 emotions fiend general? Brother Feng, how can that do? You. The moment the martial Dao prime body spoke, Feng Kantian waved it off and interrupted him. "There's nothing that can't be done," Feng Kantian said. "The Tianhuang sect that you established has the same ideals and ambitions as me. There's no need for Zephyr Thunder Palace to exist either. After today, I'll join Tianhuang sect." In his opinion, the name Tianhuang sect was even more meaningful. Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo exchanged glances and nodded to themselves. Naturally, they would follow Feng Kantian after he joined Tianhuang sect. Furthermore, the 2 of them had long known Su Zimo and did not have any resistance towards Tianhuang sect. "It's naturally best if you can come to Tianhuang sect, Brother Feng," the martial Dao prime body said. "With that, I can also step down from my position as the sect master and let you manage Tianhuang sect." Indeed, the martial Dao prime body did not have any attachment for the position of sect master. He cultivated wholeheartedly. Although he was the sect master previously, he had not managed the sect much and it was always Heavenly Wolf who took care of it. Now that Feng Kantian had joined Tianhuang sect, be it in terms of cultivation, status, combat strength, experience or reputation, he was more suitable than Su Zimo to be the sect master. "No." Feng Kantian shook his head. "You'll be the sect master." The martial Dao prime body frowned. "I'm not being polite." Feng Kantian smiled. "Firstly, Tianhuang sect was established by you to begin with. It's against the rules for me to take on the position of the sect master after joining it. Secondly, although my cultivation is above yours, you were the one who saved us this time round. Furthermore, no matter how strong I am, I don't have the ability to scare away 4 supreme fiend kings. Fiend Celestial Black Heaven and the others were fearful of Emperor Bo Zun and the Martial Dao Prime Body, not him. Therefore, with the Martial Dao Prime Body as the sect master, it would create an invisible power of intimidation towards many factions and fiend kings of the fiend domain. Feng Kantian continued, the third and most important point is that I have a feeling that you'll surpass me before long. Feng Kantian could not imagine what level someone who attracted the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation and even the unprecedented 10th tribulation would reach in the future. When the Martial Dao Prime Body saw Feng Kantian's determination, he did not persuade further and could only laugh bitterly. I would most likely be cultivating in seclusion most of the time. I won't have the time or energy to take care of the sect. That's fine. Feng Kantian waved his hand. I can be the deputy sect master. Go ahead and cultivate. Leave the matters of the sect to me. That's good. The Martial Dao Prime Body was relieved. Feng Kantian thought for a moment and said, initially, I haven't thought of a suitable title after entering the Grotto Heaven realm and becoming an immortal king. Since I've decided to become Wrath of the 7 emotions, my title from now on will be Heavenly Wrath. The word heavenly came from the last word of Feng Kantian's name, while Wrath referred to his position in the 7 emotions. Immortal King Heavenly Wrath. The Martial Dao Prime Body murmured softly and nodded. The title of Heavenly Wrath was indeed worthy of Feng Kantian's boldness. Chapter 2393, 2393 Zither and Flute Fiends. 2393 Zither and Flute Fiends. Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo exchanged glances. The latter looked at the Martial Dao Prime Body and asked with a smile, I wonder if Tianhuang sect is willing to take the 2 of us in. There's definitely no problem. I'll agree to it. Feng Kantian burst into laughter. The Martial Dao Prime Body pondered for a moment and asked sternly, fellow Taoists, are you willing to join the 7 emotions fiend generals? Us. Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo were slightly stunned. The Martial Dao Prime Body nodded and said, fellow Taoists, the music of your zither and flute is truly heavenly. Fellow Daoist Jiyu, your voice is sorrowful and wrenching. It's heartbreaking to hear it. You're indeed worthy of the title Sorrow. Fellow Daoist Qiu, your zither sounds mellow like the sound of flowing water and yellow orioles singing. It's filled with love and comforts one's heart like a warm sun. You deserve the title Love. Back in the divine firmament immortal domain, the Green Lotus true body was devastated when he heard the news of Ji Yaoshua's death. Even his Dao heart was damaged and could not recover. The Green Lotus true body was only liberated after Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo played a song of reminiscence together. When he heard the sound of the flute, the pain in his heart was finally released. The wounds on his Dao heart were only healed by the sound of the zither. At that time, although the Martial Dao Prime Body was far away in the divine firmament immortal domain, separated from Tianhuang mainland, he could sense the sadness and love in the zither and flute. A single song of reminiscence could even affect the Martial Dao Prime Body through 2 worlds. It was clear how strong the combination of Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo's zither and flute was. The sound of their zither and flute was not only infused with their dharmic Dao, but also their emotions. Are we befitting? Qiu Siluo still could not believe it. After all, there was also Immortal King Heavenly Wrath, Feng Kantian, among the 7 emotions fiend generals. The 2 of them felt that they were not qualified to be comparable to an immortal king. This time round, before the Martial Dao Prime Body could speak, Feng Kantian said, the 2 of you don't have to undervalue yourselves. I've cultivated for so many years and have never seen anyone who can defeat the 2 of you in terms of music. There is indeed. Qiu Siluo seemed to have thought of someone and whispered. The Martial Dao Prime Body seemed to have read Qiu Siluo's mind and asked. Back then, in order to snatch the soul-reaping zither from Qiu Siluo, Zither Immortal Meng Yaro mobilized a large force and even hunted down the 2 of them personally. The 2 of them had nowhere to run in the divine firmament immortal domain and were forced to leave the fiend domain. By chance, they joined Zephyr Thunder Palace. Qiu Siluo nodded gently. In terms of music, Fairy Meng Yaro was publicly acknowledged as the zither immortal, the number one in music in the entire heavenly world, let alone the divine firmament immortal domain and nine firmament immortal domain. However, Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo were unknown and no one knew about them. What zither immortal? She's nothing but an empty title. The martial Dao prime body looked down on Meng Yaro. It was not because the two of them had any grudges, but because there were no emotions in the sound of Meng Yaro's zither. It was merely her dharmic Dao techniques. Fellow Taoists, one day, your accomplishments in music will surpass Meng Yaro. Pausing for a moment, the martial Dao prime body continued, in addition, Meng Yaro once sent execution guards to hunt you guys down. This matter won't end just like that. I'll find an opportunity to have her pay for that. Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo were touched but extremely worried. Qiu Siluo said hurriedly, Sect Master, let's forget about this matter. The zither immortal's influence and reputation in the nine firmament is way too great and she's far away in the divine firmament immortal domain. Please don't take the risk for the two of us. Yes. The martial Dao prime body nodded slightly without commenting. Naturally, he would not rush to the divine firmament immortal domain's flying immortal sect single-handedly to demand an explanation that would be courting death. For something like this, he had to wait patiently for an opportunity. Since things had come to this, there were already candidates for joy, wrath, sorrow, love and hatred among the seven emotions: Mingzhen, Feng Kantian, Jiyu Tongyu, Qiu Siluo and Yang Beichen. 5 of the 7 emotions fiend generals were now settled in, leaving only empty spots for fear and lust. This was something that could not be rushed. At the side, Heavenly Wolf could not sit still any longer and came over to whisper, Master, do you think I'm suitable? There are only 2 positions left. Given our relationship, you have to reserve one for me no matter what. You can't do it. The martial Dao prime body shook his head once more in rejection. Heavenly Wolf rolled his eyes in anger. No matter what, he was the 7 emotions fiend king back then. Now that he had reincarnated, his cultivation speed was not slow and his combat strength was not weak. Why was he always looked down on? Why can't I? Heavenly Wolf muttered, of the 2 of them, one plays a flute while the other plays a zither. They're just playing music. What can they do? If both of them can become the 7 emotions fiend generals, why can't I? The martial Dao prime body put on the Mara mask once more and said indifferently, if you're indignant, go and listen to them play a song. Sure. Heavenly Wolf sneered. He had lived 2 lives and had a strong mental state. How could he be suppressed by a mere zither and flute? Heavenly Wolf raised his head and looked for Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo. The martial Dao prime body ignored him and cleaned up the battlefield with Feng Kantian, Yang Beichen and the others. This time round, Yang Zui, Fairy Purple River and the others led 18 fiend armies and 1,000,000 fiends over. However, all of them were annihilated without exception. The 1,000,000-strong fiend army was destroyed by the heavenly tribulation, leaving behind storage bags on the ground. All of that was a huge fortune that was enough to support Tianhuang sect's rapid development to another level. Brother Su, where are you prepared to let Tianhuang sect develop? Feng Kantian asked. The martial Dao prime body asked instead, what do you think, Brother Feng? Feng Kantian analyzed, the heartland of the fiend domain is filled with mixed factions and the situation is chaotic. Although the resources here are rich, we face killing and fighting every day and the competition is extremely intense. If you choose to stay at the borders of the fiend domain, the resources will be much less but it will be relatively stable. Pausing for a moment, Feng Kantian laughed bitterly. It was a failure when I established Zephyr Thunder Palace in the Heartland. I suggest that we develop at the borders of the fiend domain. Alright, let's return to Tianhuang sect then. The martial Dao prime body nodded. Feng Xantian's thoughts coincided with his. Although Feng Kantian became an immortal king and the strength of Tianhuang sect increased significantly, the situation in the heartland of the fiend domain was way too complicated and chaotic and was not suitable for Tianhuang sect to develop. Furthermore, Feng Kantian had just entered the Grotto Heaven realm and needed to cultivate for a period of time to stabilize his cultivation realm and familiarize himself with the power of the Grotto Heaven realm. Apart from Feng Kantian, the other 4 of the 7 emotions fiend generals also needed time to raise their combat strength. Although Yang Beichen and the other 3 were now part of the 7 emotions fiend generals, they still had to grow. At the very least, they had to reach the level of peak heaven immortals. The martial Dao prime body was prepared to cultivate in seclusion once more as well. Before long, the battlefield was cleaned up. Everyone was prepared to return to Tianhuang sect. Time to go, Feng Kantian commanded. Jiyu Tongyu and Qiu Siluo had already put away their zither and flute and everyone was prepared. Only Heavenly Wolf was still immersed in the zither and flute music and could not extricate himself. Tears streamed down his face and his eyes were blurred from crying. I'm not leaving, I'm not leaving. Why is life so bitter? Boo-hoo. Chapter 2394 Change in the Jade Talisman. 2394 Change in the Jade Talisman. 1,000 years later. Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, Heaven and Earth Academy. A sword beam sped over from afar at the legacy ground. In the blink of an eye, it arrived before a cave abode and appeared. It was Sword Immortal Yuhua. Right then, the door to the cave abode opened and a woman who seemed like a fairy in a painting walked out slowly. A snow-white butterfly danced around her. It was Fairy Mo Qing. When Sword Immortal Yuhua saw Mo Qing, he smiled and welcomed her. I heard that all these years, you will head to the messenger pavilion of the academy every once in a while to browse through some news of the heavenly world, junior sister? Yes. Mo Qing nodded slightly and replied indifferently without explaining further. Junior sister, why are you suddenly interested in the events of the heavenly world? Sword Immortal Yuhua knew that Mo Qing's personality was as such and was not bothered, asking with a smile still. It's nothing. Mo Qing shook her head. I'm just taking a casual look to expand my knowledge. Sword Immortal Yuhua knew that Mo Qing was not telling the truth, but he did not expose her and remained silent. This junior sister of his was obsessed with the Tao of painting and cultivated in seclusion in the academy all year round. In fact, she rarely traveled and never cared about the outside world. There must be a special reason why she was suddenly concerned about the heavenly world. However, Sword Immortal Yuhua could not guess. For the past 1,000 years, he had been paying close attention to the relationship between Yang Ruoxu and Mo Qing. Logically speaking, Yang Ruoxu should be closer to Mo Qing after entering the Perfected One realm and joining the Legacy Ground. However, to his disappointment, despite his constant observation, the two of them had never interacted with one another. In fact, they had not even met, let alone express any signs of flirtatious behavior. On the contrary, Yang Ruoxu was very close and intimate with an inner sect disciple named Princess Scarlet Rainbow. This puzzled Sword Immortal Yuhua. Senior brother, is there anything? Mo Qing did not look at Sword Immortal Yuhua and merely said softly, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Ah, thank you, senior brother. Mo Qing hesitated for a moment before receiving the jade scroll. Her spirit consciousness was immersed in it as she browsed through it. A moment later, a hint of disappointment flashed through Mo Qing's eyes after she read through the information. Why isn't there any news of the Fiend Domain? Mo Qing asked in a seemingly casual manner. The Fiend Domain? Sword Immortal Yuhua pondered for a moment. The Fiend Domain is extremely chaotic every day with bloodshed everywhere and fighting. It's always the same. The greatest thing that happened in the Fiend Domain during this period of time might be the death of the supreme perfected Fiend Yang Zui and the others 1,000 years ago. When she heard that, Mo Qing's eyes lit up as she nodded. She had long heard about this. Sword Immortal Yuhua continued, I heard that a monster incarnate was born in the Fiend Domain. He's known as Desolate Marshal and founded Tianhuang sect. When he entered the Perfected One realm, he attracted the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation and killed an army of 1,000,000 fiends. Even the supreme perfected fiend Yang Zui, and the other 3 experts on the perfected fiend ranking died in his hands. Suddenly, Mo Qing spoke and corrected him seriously, it's not just the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation, there was the 10th tribulation. Foo. Sword Immortal Yu Hua sneered, "Junior sister, you're still too inexperienced in the pugilistic world. It's obvious that's fake news. It's way too ridiculous." Throughout history, there have been countless paragons and monster incarnates. Even the great emperors of history can only attract the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation at most. There's no 10th tribulation. This matter goes beyond common sense. Most likely, it was exaggerated by busybodies and got more ridiculous through word of mouth. I reckon that this person might not have even attracted the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Mo Qing frowned slightly, seemingly displeased. "I believe it's true." Sword Immortal Yu Hua could see the displeasure in Mo Qing's eyes and did not think too much about it. He thought that she was angry because he had scolded her. On the contrary, he was secretly delighted. Prior to this, Mo Qing had always been indifferent to him. Notwithstanding the fact that she had never smiled, she was not even angry at him. Now that he saw that Mo Qing seemed displeased, Sword Immortal Yu Hua felt that the distance between the two of them seemed to have closed up. Sword Immortal Yu Hua smiled gently and explained, "Junior sister, what I just said is only one of the reasons. It said that desolate Marshal attracted the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation and turned the million-strong fiend army into ashes with no survivors. Since they're all dead, who spread the news? Furthermore, desolate Marshal's tribulation transcendence means that he has just entered the perfected one realm. How can he kill 4 experts on the perfected fiend ranking? In fact, there's even the supreme perfected fiend among them. Junior sister, why don't you ask other people and see how many of them would believe such a thing?" Mo Qing said, "That's just your speculation. You've never seen him before, so how do you know his capabilities?" Foo. Sword Immortal Yu Hua smiled. "If Desolate Marshal truly dares to appear in front of me, I'll definitely sever his facade and destroy this myth." The more Mo Qing listened, the more displeased she felt. "If there's nothing else, senior brother, I'll take my leave." They could not agree on anything. As such, Mo Qing spoke coldly and turned to leave before Sword Immortal Yu Hua could even reply, speeding towards the direction of the inner sect. Sword Immortal Yu Hua froze on the spot with a dark expression, unable to recover for a moment. He looked at Mo Qing's back view and was at a loss. He did not know how he had angered this junior sister with just a few words. Sword Immortal Yu Hua took a deep breath and looked at the void in the distance, sending a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness, "Follow her and see where she's going." The void swayed slightly and a figure flashed, following far in the direction of Fairy Mo Qing. The inner sect of the academy. Within the cave abode, Su Zimo opened his eyes and let out a long breath. After 1,000 years of cultivation, his cultivation realm broke through once more and he was already at the peak of the level 4 heaven essence realm. His cultivation speed had far surpassed cultivators of the same cultivation realm. For example, Princess Scarlet Rainbow and Liu Ping had only cultivated to the level 2 heaven essence realm. However, Su Zimo could clearly sense that it was much more difficult to cultivate in the heaven essence realm. Such seclusion cultivation would only allow one to break through a realm at most before they would be stuck and encounter a bottleneck. He had been stuck at the peak of the level 4 heaven essence realm for more than 100 years. Su Zimo stood up and came to a spirit garden not far away. He looked at the Ashoka tree trunk planted 1,000 years ago with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. For the past 1,000 years, he would take care of the Ashoka tree every once in a while. However, even after such a long time, the Ashoka tree showed no signs of recovery. Right then, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he touched his storage bag and took out a jade talisman. The jade talisman was the one he obtained in the Emperor's tomb back then. All these years, there had been no activity from the jade talisman. But now, the jade talisman in Su Zimo's palm began to heat up and was filled with a green glow. Chapter 2395, 2395 Secret Ground Opening. 2395 Secret Ground Opening. When he saw the green glow emitted by the jade talisman in his hands, Su Zimo's heart surged with anticipation. According to Yun Zhu, the jade talisman was related to the taboo mystic classic, The Three Pure Ones Jade Manual. The Grand Pure Jade Manual and Supreme Pure Jade Manual already had owners. The Jade Talisman should be connected to the final Jade Pure Jade Manual. Although it was only a single volume, it was enough to make countless cultivators go crazy. For Suzimo, obtaining the Jade Pure Jade Manual would not only be an improvement for the Green Lotus True Body. The Martial Dao Prime Body could also browse through the Jade Pure Jade Manual through the Spirit Consonance Art and smelt it to continue tempering the true Martial Dao Body. Right then, Suzimo's heart skipped a beat as he sensed that someone had arrived outside his cave abode. Hey! Initially, Suzimo wanted to ignore it. However, he could not help but feel puzzled when he saw that it was senior sister Mo Qing. He hesitated for a moment and decided to go out and take a look. Senior sister Mo Qing cultivated in seclusion at the legacy ground all year round and rarely came out. There was most likely something important for her to come to his cave abode. Suzimo placed the jade talisman in his storage bag first and opened the door of his cave abode to welcome her. Senior sister. Suzimo cupped his fists and greeted. Mo Qing sized up Suzimo and nodded slightly. You're cultivating very quickly. You've already broken through to the level 4 Heaven Essence realm. Suzimo blinked. He could not tell what Mo Qing wanted to say and continued the conversation politely. Senior sister, do you want to enter the cave abode for a chat? Yes. Mo Qing nodded. Before Suzimo could react, she walked into his cave abode, leaving him with a graceful back view. Suzimo was stunned and was at a loss. He snapped out of his stupor quickly and followed hurriedly. Mo Qing entered the cave abode and sat down. Suzimo brewed a pot of fragrant tea and the two of them sat opposite one another, sipping tea slowly without saying anything. Even after a while, Suzimo did not say anything and Mo Qing remained silent as well. Mo Qing was indifferent and composed, as though she could not sense the strange atmosphere or awkwardness at all. Suzimo could no longer hold it in. Given his understanding of this senior sister, it was not difficult for her to sit like this for a long time without saying anything. The activity of the jade talisman in the storage bag was getting more obvious. Suzimo could not wait that long. Senior sister, is there anything? Suzimo probed. Mo Qing said indifferently, oh, it's nothing much. I just came to see if you had any doubts about your cultivation. Mo Qing said indifferently, oh, it's nothing much. I just came to see if you had any doubts about your cultivation. Not at the moment. Suzimo was confused. For some unknown reason, senior sister Mo Qing suddenly cared about him. On second thought, the two of them had been through thick and thin in Avici back then. Since they were in the same sect and now had the same master, it was only normal for senior sister Mo Qing to care about him. However, he felt that something was amiss. This did not seem like senior sister Mo Qing's style. He wanted to send senior sister Mo Qing away as soon as possible and asked a few symbolic questions about cultivation. Mo Qing replied one after another. However, Mo Qing had no intention of leaving after a few questions. Senior sister? Suzimo asked again. Are there no other questions? Mo Qing asked. That's all, that's all. Suzimo said hurriedly. Oh. Mo Qing nodded. Since that's the case, I'll head back first. If there's any problem, you can look for me at the legacy ground as well. All right. Suzimo agreed readily. Mo Qing walked out of the cave abode and asked casually, by the way, have you heard of something major that happened in the Fiend Domain 1,000 years ago? The Fiend Domain? Suzimo raised his brow slightly. Mo Qing said, it has something to do with fellow Daoist Desolate Marshal who saved us. I heard that his tribulation transcendence attracted the 10th tribulation and he even killed the supreme perfected fiend and 1,000,000 fiend cultivators. I heard. Suzimo nodded. Mo Qing asked again, have you guys been in contact all these years? Huh? Suzimo was stunned. Mo Qing looked at Suzimo. Junior brother, I know that you guys are on good terms. Otherwise, you wouldn't have handed a treasure like the Hell Suppression tripod to him. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone that there's a connection between you guys. The only difference between immortals and fiends is the dharmic Tao they cultivate. There are also violent and heinous people in the immortal domain and righteous people in the fiend domain. Furthermore, Fellow Daoist desolate marshal saved me. I mean us. Although Mo Qing said a lot, most of Su Zimo's attention was focused on the jade talisman in his storage bag and he did not listen carefully. Su Zimo replied ambiguously, yes, we do have some connection. How has he been recently? Mo Qing asked softly. Pausing for a moment, she explained, he saved us before after all. I'm worried because I haven't heard any news of him for a long time. He's fine and doing all right. He's been in seclusion the entire time. Su Zimo said as he observed the activity of the jade talisman in his storage bag. At that moment, the green glow emitted by the jade talisman intensified and contained a strange energy fluctuation. Just as Mo Qing was about to ask something, Su Zimo interrupted, Senior sister, I have something to settle here. I'll ask you about cultivation next time. Yes. Although Mo Qing was inexperienced and rarely roamed outside, she could tell that Su Zimo was sending her off. She nodded and turned to leave without lingering. When she first arrived, she was a little unhappy. However, she felt an inexplicable joy in his heart after leaving. When he saw Mo Qing leave, Su Zimo closed the cave abode and activated the Immortal formation around it before retrieving the jade talisman from his storage bag. Right then, the jade talisman shattered and released a powerful force that tore through the void, pulling Su Zimo in. At the same time, in a secret chamber on the top floor of the pavilion, Old Xian seemed to have sensed something and suddenly opened his eyes. He glanced in the direction of the inner sect of the academy and closed his eyes to rest once more. In a palace deep in the clouds of the academy, the sect master of the academy opened his eyes as well. His eyes were deep and shone with a divine light. After pondering for a moment, the divine light in the sect master's eyes faded and he returned to normal. The jade talisman was like a teleportation jade talisman that sucked Su Zimo into a spatial tunnel after shattering. After a moment of dizziness, Su Zimo fell from the spatial tunnel and stabilized himself hurriedly. He released his spirit consciousness and descended slowly from midair. This seemed to be a secret ground with a universe of its own. It was clearly different from the world outside. Not far ahead stood a palace made of gigantic rocks. It was dozens of feet tall and had a majestic aura, ancient and heavy, surrounded by a faint mist. Suddenly, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The moment he descended, a crack appeared in the void not far away and a few figures ran out. Su Zimo swept his gaze. Including him, a total of 9 people descended in this secret ground at the same time. Chapter 2396, 2396 Prince and Princess. 2396 Prince and Princess. Among the other 8, there were 6 men and 2 women. Their attires varied and it was clear that they came from different places. A thought crossed Su Zimo's mind and he instantly understood the logic behind it. The jade talisman he obtained in the Emperor's tomb was most likely something similar to a teleportation jade talisman. There were a total of 9 that connected to the secret ground. The legendary Pure Jade manual should be in this secret ground as well. However, there was only a single copy of the Jade manual and it was unknown who among the 9 of them would obtain it. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness swept past the 8 cultivators right away. Among the 8 cultivators, the ones with the highest cultivation realms were a man and a woman, both grade 7 heaven immortals. The man wore a golden robe and a crown on his head, exuding a dignified aura. He raised his head slightly and looked straight, as though he did not take the other 8 people seriously. The other woman stood in midair with an indifferent expression. She was pitilessly beautiful and graceful. In terms of aura, she was not weaker than the golden-robed man. Inadvertently, an aura emanated from the man and woman, as though they were unparalleled emperors that looked down on the world with innate might. Apart from the man and woman, there was also a white-robed girl. She looked to be around 17 years old and had an oval face that carried a hint of childishness. She had bright eyes, pearly white teeth and exuded a spirited aura. The white-robed girl was a grade 6 heaven immortal, second only to the man and woman. After that was a golden-haired man and a pale-faced skinny man, both grade 5 heaven immortals. Apart from Su Zimo, who was a grade 4 heaven immortal, there was another person who was also a grade 4 heaven immortal. Of the remaining 2 people, one was a grade 3 heaven immortal. There was also a boy in a blue shirt who was only a grade 1 heaven immortal. He had a timid expression and averted his gaze, as though he was feeling uneasy and fearful after arriving at this secret ground all of a sudden with 8 other people. I'm He Dan from Tsunghai Temple of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain. Greetings, fellow Taoists. The cultivator, who was also a grade 4 heaven immortal like Su Zimo, was the first to break his silence as he greeted everyone with a smile. I'm from the Elixir Firmament Immortal Domain, Chi Yu of Heavenly Ascension Sect. The grade 3 heaven immortal cupped fists and said as well. Anyone who could obtain such a jade talisman was definitely outstanding. The sects that He Dan and Chi Yu were in were extremely famous heaven-grade immortal sects that were not weaker than Heaven and Earth Academy and Flying Immortal Sect. As for He Dan and Chi Yu, they were also the top and youngest paragons of their respective sects. Apart from the grade 1 heaven immortal, the blue-robed boy, He Dan and Chi Yu were not confident of dealing with anyone present. That green-robed scholarly grade 4 heaven immortal looks ordinary and doesn't seem like a threat. He Dan and Chi Yu noticed Su Zimo at the same time, and a thought flashed through their minds as they made a judgment. Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, Heaven and Earth Academy, Su Zimo. Su Zimo added. Nobody present had any reaction. There were hundreds of thousands of inner sect disciples in Heaven and Earth Academy. Although a grade 4 heaven immortal like Su Zimo was rather famous in the Divine Firmament Immortal Domain, there had never been any gatherings in the 9 immortal domains, and the other immortal domains had naturally not heard of him. The only exception was people like Yun Ting, who was invincible from birth and was extremely famous in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain as well. Nai Hun of the Jade Firmament Immortal Domain. The skinny grade 5 heaven immortal said indifferently. You guys can call me Golden Feather. The golden-haired man, who was also a grade 5 heaven immortal, smirked and said slowly with a proud expression. Although Golden Feather hid himself well, Su Zimo's senses were extremely sharp and he could still sense a trace of demonic chi from this person. If he was not wrong, this person should not be human. Green Firmament Immortal Domain, Lin Luo. The white-robed girl's eyes darted around as she spoke. Upon hearing the words Green Firmament Immortal Domain, Su Zimo specially glanced at the white-robed girl. According to Feng Kantian, the human emperor and his wife were in the Green Firmament Immortal Domain. Apart from the blue-robed boy whose cultivation was way too low and nobody cared, only the man and woman with the highest cultivation realms had yet to speak. My surname is Ying. The golden-robed man with the crown on his head spoke slowly, as though he was unwilling to say anything more. However, those 3 words caused the expressions of He Dan, Chi Yu and the others present to change. The surname Ying was extremely rare and only the Purple Firmament Immortal Domain had it. More importantly, the surname Ying came from an immortal emperor. Coupled with the fact that the man looked young, his identity was obvious. Prince Ying Tian? He Dan exclaimed. Among the descendants of the Purple Firmament Immortal Emperor, only the youngest son was younger than 5,000 years old. He was lauded as the most talented and promising monster incarnate in the Purple Firmament Immortal Domain in the past 1,000,000 years. In fact, there were even rumors that when Ying Tian entered the Perfected One realm and condensed his Tao fruit, he would definitely attract the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation. Ying Tian's name represented that he would conquer the heavens. The fact that the Purple Firmament Immortal Emperor gave this name to him was proof of his love and expectations for his youngest son. There were not many people with the surname Ying in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain, and there was only a single Ying Tian. Ying Tian's reputation was not weaker than Yun Ting's. When he heard someone reveal his background, Ying Tian smiled faintly, seemingly satisfied with the reactions of He Dan, Chi Yu and the others. Su Zimo nodded to himself. The reason why Ying Tian exuded the might of someone who had been in power for a long time was because the bloodline of the immortal emperor flowed through his body. If this was a prince, the woman beside him with an aura comparable to his was probably not simple either. Right then, Ying Tian glanced sideways at the woman beside him and smiled. Qianqian, once I obtain this volume of the 3 Pure Ones Jade Manual and read it for a month, I'll give it to you as a gift. How about that? The woman did not seem to appreciate it and sneered, we don't know who will get their hands on it yet. Haha. Ying Tian burst into laughter. There are only 9 people here. Apart from you, who else can even withstand a single palm strike from me? Who dares to lay their hands on what I want? Ying Tian did not conceal the threat and killing intent in his tone. Qianqian? Right then, He Dan's heart skipped a beat and she asked instinctively, "Fellow Daoist, are you from the White Firmament Immortal Domain?" "I'm Lang Qianqian." The woman said indifferently. He Dan, Qi Yu and the others felt their hearts skip a beat. The princess. Similar to the Ying surname, the Lang surname was extremely rare and was the surname of an immortal emperor. The name of the White Firmament Immortal Domain was related to that surname. The princess, Lang Qianqian, was also a renowned monster incarnate in the 9 Firmament Immortal Domain in recent years and was a blessed paragon. He Dan, Qi Yu and the others exchanged glances and were secretly alarmed. Who would have thought that there would be a prince and princess among the 9 of them? Notwithstanding the fact that both of them were grade 7 heaven immortals and had the highest cultivation realms among the 9 of them, they were almost invincible among their peers with just the immortal emperor bloodline in their bodies alone. Even Golden Feather, who had a haughty expression, initially frowned slightly, as though he was wary. Among the 9 of them, the only ones who could remain calm were Su Zimo and the young girl from the Green Firmament Immortal Domain, Lin Luo. "You guys are considered fated to be able to arrive here." Right then, a voice sounded from the secret ground, identical to the remnant consciousness in the Emperor's tomb. Unexpectedly, the owner of the voice should be the immortal emperor who died in the Emperor's tomb. "The Jade Pure Hall is up ahead and there are some mystical treasures that I've collected. I'll give them all to you guys. As for who can obtain the Jade Pure Jade Manual, that will depend on your own fate." Chapter 2397, 2397 Kingrade Immortal Pill. 2397 Kingrade Immortal Pill. The moment he said that, the clouds around the Jade Pure Palace at the front dissipated and the door opened slowly. In a flash, Prince Ying Tian was the first to charge towards the Jade Pure Hall. Princess Lang Qianqian followed closely behind at an extremely fast speed. The remaining 7 people, Su Zimo included, moved one after another and charged towards the Jade Pure Palace. The hall was extremely spacious and everything could be seen with a single glance. 9 balls of light of different sizes floated in midair and the entire hall was filled with an extremely rich life force. Nirvana Immortal Grass, Sun Essence Fire Vine, Heaven Azura Immortal Dew, Vast Ocean Treasure Ginseng. Ying Tian and the others' eyes lit up. Over the years, when Su Zimo was cultivating in seclusion, he had browsed through many ancient books of the upper world. He could also recognize 7 or 8 rare treasures from the 9 balls of light before him. Those mystical treasures were all plants and were extremely rare, many of them had even gone extinct. Be it refining elixirs or consuming them personally, there were unimaginable benefits. Any one of the 9 mystical treasures was probably not weaker than the 7 glow immortal ginseng. Ying Tian circulated his movement technique and transformed into a divine light, speeding towards the Nirvana immortal grass closest to him. When Lang Qianqian saw that there was no hope of getting her hands on the Nirvana immortal grass, she changed directions decisively and flew towards another ball of light. Among the 9 mystical treasures, the intensity and range of the light emitted by each of them were different. For example, the Nirvana immortal grass emitted the strongest light and had the largest coverage. It was also the rarest and was more precious than the other 8 mystical treasures. That was why it was targeted by Ying Tian. When the other cultivators saw that Lang Qianqian had changed her target, none of them wanted to fight Ying Tian and flew towards the other mystical treasures. Golden Feather of the Vantage Firmament Immortal Domain chose the Sun Essence Fire Vine. Su Zimo glared at one of the 9 mystical treasures and sped forward. The mystical treasure was like a withered yellow tree branch without any signs of life. The light it emitted was extremely weak as well and was the most inconspicuous of the 9 mystical treasures. However, that withered branch gave the green lotus true body a strange feeling. He wanted to devour and refine it, similar to when he first saw the Ashoka tree trunk. The grade 11 creation green lotus was almost at its peak and anything it fancied and wanted to devour was definitely not an ordinary item. Su Zimo arrived beside the withered branch and was about to reach out to retrieve it. Suddenly, a sharp coldness tore through the void on the other side and arrived instantly, piercing towards Su Zimo's palm. Apart from Su Zimo, there was someone else who wanted the withered branch. The person who attacked knew his limits and merely stabbed towards Su Zimo's palm, as though he only wanted the latter to retreat in the face of difficulties. Su Zimo ignored it and continued grabbing the withered branch. The cold light descended, but Su Zimo was unmoved. He flicked his finger gently and took the cold light head-on. At the same time, a heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth from his fingertip. Clang! The cold light struck his finger with the sound of metal clashing. Su Zimo's fingers were intact and he put away the withered branch successfully while looking at the other party. The person who attacked was Lin Luo of the Green Firmament Immortal Domain. The two of them had only exchanged blows for a brief moment before they separated, but the distance between them was extremely close. The girl named Lin Luo looked familiar. "Thank you for holding back." Su Zimo put away the withered branch and nodded slightly to Lin Luo. Lin Luo had a calm expression. She did not seem bothered that she did not obtain the withered branch, nor did she get entangled with Su Zimo. Instead, she turned and charged towards another mystical treasure. As for the blue-robed boy who was only a grade 1 heaven immortal, he seemed to know that his combat strength was at the bottom of the 9. Therefore, he was extremely cautious and chose a mystical treasure that no one fought for to keep. In the blink of an eye, the 9 mystical treasures were divided among Su Zimo and the other 8. In the hall, the 9 of them were wary of one another and restrained themselves, not making any rash moves. A wall at the front of the hall suddenly rose slowly and another hall appeared with 9 balls of light floating within. Without hesitation, Su Zimo and the other 8 charged into the hall at the front. The medicinal fragrance in the hall was rich. The 9 balls of light contained immortal pills and elixirs. King-grade bone tempering elixir, king-grade marrow cleansing elixir. The 9 balls of light that floated were all king-grade immortal pills. Even after so many years, they did not rot and emitted such a strong fragrance. In the upper world, immortal pills and elixirs could roughly be divided into black, earth, heaven, perfected, king and emperor grades. The later grades were extremely rare and difficult to refine successfully. As for the 9 immortal pills in the hall, they were all king grade. Among the 9 firmament immortal domain, there was an immortal domain that was best at refining immortal pills and elixirs, the elixir firmament immortal domain. The grade 3 heaven immortal, Chi-Yu, was from the elixir firmament immortal domain. When he saw the 9 king-grade immortal pills floating in midair, his eyes reddened and he was excited. A few of the 9 immortal pills were even extinct in the elixir firmament immortal domain. Su Zimo could clearly sense that Lin Luo, who was not far away, was breathing heavily after seeing one of the immortal pills, as though she was extremely nervous. Before anyone else could move, Lin Luo took the initiative and charged towards one of the king-grade immortal pills. It's the 9 orifices yang reversion pill. Ying Tian's eyes shone brightly as he glared at the one with the strongest glow among the 9 immortal pills and said slowly. That immortal pill was also what Lin Luo wanted. 9 orifices yang reversion pill. Lang Qianqian was moved as well when she heard that. When they saw that even the prince and princess were targeting that immortal pill, no one else dared to lay their hands on it. Everyone else moved one after another to snatch the other immortal pills. Swoosh! Ying Tian's figure vanished and he arrived before Lin Luo, grabbing towards the 9 orifices yang reversion pill. Swoosh! There was still a distance between Lin Luo and Ying Tian. However, Lin Luo suddenly released a mysterious footwork and took a step diagonally forward, arriving behind Ying Tian instantly. Hey! Su Zimo's expression changed. He had once seen the same footwork that Lin Luo displayed earlier on through the eyes of the martial Dao Prime body with the help of the spirit consonance art. Back when the 9 of 9 heavenly tribulation descended, this was the footwork released by the black-robed woman with the horsetail whip. However, the black-robed woman's footsteps were clearly more proficient and mysterious than Lin Luo's. Lin Luo slashed towards Ying Tian's palm. Ying Tian harumphed coldly and did not dodge or avoid. With a flip of his palm, he held a gigantic heavy sword in his hands and flipped it in reverse. Although it seemed casual, it released an incomparably ferocious power. Lin Luo's expression changed slightly and the sword in her hands was almost sent flying by Ying Tian's heavy sword. There was a difference in their cultivation realms to begin with. Lin Luo was completely disadvantaged in terms of strength. Ying Tian wielded his heavy sword and swung it widely. Although Lin Luo's sword technique was exquisite, she could not defend against Ying Tian's attacks at all. The reason why she could maintain her undefeated state and deal with Ying Tian was because of that mysterious footwork. On the other side, Lang Qianqian arrived. She wanted to get her hands on the 9 orifices yang reversion pill while Ying Tian and Lin Luo were fighting. Ying Tian burst into laughter and summoned a tripod with 3 handles, ramming it in reverse towards Lang Qianqian. Ying Tian was fearless against 2 people. Instead, he fought fiercer and fiercer. That king-grade immortal pill triggered a chaotic battle between 3 top paragons of the 9 of them. Chapter 2398, 2398 Strike. 2398 Strike. The others were naturally unwilling to get involved in this chaotic battle between a prince, princess, and grade 6 heaven immortal. Notwithstanding the fact that nobody present was a match for the prince and princess. Even if someone could defeat the 2 of them, they might not dare to hurt them. The descendants of immortal emperors had powerful bloodlines and noble statuses. It was unknown how many trump cards they hid. He Dan said, Lin Luo is indeed capable. Her cultivation realm is lower than Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian, but she can still deal with them. Impressive. PH, she's from the green firmament immortal domain. For her to possess such methods at her age, she's probably the daughter of those 2. Golden Feather said, as though he had already guessed Lin Luo's background. I got it. Qiyu was enlightened. It makes sense why Lin Luo is bent on getting her hands on the 9 orifices yang reversion pill, even fighting against the prince and princess. She wants to save her father. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Although Golden Feather and the others did not say it explicitly, it coincided with his guess. Right then, the situation on the battlefield changed as well. Ying Tian burst into laughter. Qianqian, there's only a single 9 orifices yang reversion pill. It's fine if either of us gets our hands on it, but we must not let a lowlife of the Lin family take it away. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a disgrace to our emperor lineages? Although Lang Qianqian did not say anything, she nodded slightly. The 2 of them had an extremely tacit understanding and changed their targets at the same time, attacking Lin Luo together. It was difficult for Lin Luo to win against Ying Tian or Lang Qianqian, and she could only try her best to maneuver. Now that the prince and princess were ganging up on her, the pressure on Lin Luo increased exponentially and she was instantly in danger. Their goal was clear. They wanted to join forces to suppress Lin Luo first before deciding on the ownership of the 9 orifices yang reversion pill. Lin Luo, give up. Ying Tian sneered, even if you obtain the 9 orifices yang reversion pill, you won't be able to save Lin Zhon's injuries. He disregarded the laws and forcefully descended upon the lower worlds, suffering a backlash. Even if he consumes the 9 orifices yang reversion pill, it's useless. Your Lin family came from the lower worlds and have a lowly background. The fact that you're able to develop to this point is your peak. It's about time for your decline. This was a verbal attack. Once one panicked, they would definitely reveal openings. It was clear that Ying Tian was holding back and did not use his full strength. That was the reason why he chose such a relaxed method. The Pure Jade manual had yet to appear and he did not know what changes would happen. Naturally, Ying Tian would not unleash his full strength. Lin Luo was too young and had not had enough experience. After Ying Tian's remarks, she could not help but feel worried about her father and was emotional. That fluctuation was fleeting and difficult to detect. However, Lin Luo was facing the 2 strongest monster incarnates among the heaven immortals. Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian noticed the abnormality in Lin Luo's mental state at the same time. Their gazes intensified and shone with a divine light as they released ferocious attacks, wanting to seize the opportunity to suppress Lin Luo completely. Lin Luo has lost. Qiyu shook his head gently. She's still too young. Coupled with the fact that she's flustered out of concern, Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian gained an opening. Fellow Daoist, if you pity her, you can go forth and help, He Tan chuckled. Me. Chiyu said coldly, why should I go forth and kill myself? Even if the 7 of us join forces, we won't be a match for Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian, let alone me single-handedly. Swoosh. Just as Chiyu and the others were discussing, a white figure tore through the air and charged into the battlefield diagonally. Like a spear, it collided heavily against the side of Lang Chanxian's sword and knocked it out. Immediately after, the white figure suddenly slumped down like a spirit snake and coiled around Ying Tian's heavy sword. Everyone was alarmed and looked over hurriedly. The so-called white figure was 3,000 threads that were snow-white and connected to an emerald-green horsetail whip on the other end. The person who attacked was the grade 4 heaven immortal that they had almost ignored. Was this person crazy? How dare he interfere in a fight of the prince and princess? He Dan, Chiyu and the others looked at Su Zimo with strange expressions. It was as though a calamity was about to descend upon Su Zimo the next moment. He was just a grade 4 heaven immortal. If Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian wanted to kill him, he might not even be able to last 3 rounds. On the battlefield, Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian had a different realization. That was because their attacks earlier on were completely dispelled by Su Zimo. The 3,000 threads formed a long spear that struck Lang Chanxian's sword. Coincidentally, it was the weakest point of the sword and destroyed Lang Chanxian's power instantly. As for Ying Tian's sword technique, it was wide and powerful. However, the 3,000 threads turned toughness into gentleness and coiled around Ying Tian's heavy sword, preventing him from using his strength. It was just a horsetail whip. However, in the hands of that grade 4 heaven immortal, the combination of toughness and gentleness could produce such a huge impact. With that slight delay, Lin Luo had already broken free from the encirclement of the 2 of them and escaped from the predicament, obtaining a breather. Me. Ying Tian said, bastard, I don't know where you came from, but you actually dare to interfere in our matters. You must be tired of living. Go and get the pill, I'll hold them back. Su Zimo sent a message to Lin Luo's spirit consciousness while wielding his horsetail whip in his right hand and Trinity Auspicious Jade in his left, charging towards Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian. Since he was certain of Lin Luo's identity, Su Zimo could not stand by idly. Furthermore, this 9 orifices young reversion pill might be able to heal the human emperor's injuries. You said she was a lowlife, huh? Let's see what's so noble about the bloodline of someone from an emperor lineage like you. Su Zimo waved his horsetail whip and tried his best to recall the horsetail whip technique of the black-robed woman in the 10th tribulation. Over the years, he often recalled the horsetail whip technique of the black-robed woman. Although he could not comprehend it completely, he had learned around 50% of it. In his hands, the horsetail whip was varied and could be used for both offense and defense. Ying Tian wielded his heavy sword but was bound by the horsetail whip and could not unleash his original strength. The heavy sword seemed to have fallen into a swamp, sinking deeper and deeper. There were only 3,000 threads and every single one of them was as thin as hair. However, they were incomparably tough. He could not slash through it and everything was like a mess. It was not only the heavy sword in Ying Tian's hands, even he was gradually trapped by the horsetail whip. Everywhere he could see, there were dense white threads. On the other side, Lang Chanxian wielded a long sword. Each time she attacked, Su Zimo would smash the Trinity Auspicious Jade in his hands. At the front of the Trinity Auspicious Jade, there were 3 pearls that shone with 3 different colors. No matter how exquisite Lang Chanxian's sword technique was, as long as she was struck by the Trinity Auspicious Jade, a tricolored glow would burst forth and disperse the essence chi on her sword. Instantly, Lang Chanxian's sword technique dissipated and her attacks were resolved. Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian were clearly 3 cultivation realms above Su Zimo. However, their attacks were useless and they were held back by Su Zimo instead. Part of the reason for this situation was because Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian were holding back. On the other hand, it was also because Su Zimo had the advantage of the weapon. Be it the Trinity Auspicious Jade or the Primordial Unity Horsetail Whip, they were treasures derived from the creation Green Lotus. Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian had never seen them before and were confused momentarily, unable to react. Although Lin Luo did not know why Su Zimo would help her, this was a rare opportunity. She moved hurriedly and charged towards the 9 orifices yang reversion pill. When he saw that, Ying Tian's expression turned cold and he decided not to hold back. Chapter 2399, 2399 Body Seed. 2399 Body Seed. Splash. Ying Tian channeled his blood qi and a tsunami surged in his body. Purple qi burst forth from within and dyed the surroundings, repelling the 3,000 threads instantly. The strength of the Emperor's bloodline was unimaginable. You think that you can trap me with your lousy horsetail whip? Wielding his heavy sword, Ying Tian broke through the coils of the primordial horsetail unity whip and charged towards Su Zimo. At the same time, Lang Qianqian channeled her blood qi and condensed essence qi. She broke free from the entanglement of the Trinity Auspicious Jade and changed directions, wanting to stop Lin Luo, who was snatching the 9 orifices yang reversion pill. Roar. Su Zimo's gaze intensified. Suddenly, he spoke and let out a dragon roar that was as loud as the cloud. The moment Su Zimo activated the Dragon Roar secret skill, Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian sensed it and counterattacked right away, releasing their sound domain secret skills as well. Dong, dong, dong. The sound of war drums beating could be heard from Ying Tian's mouth, as though thousands of horses were galloping. Faint sounds of killing and fighting could be heard as thousands of horses galloped and chariots rumbled. The sound domain secret skill seemed to have transformed into a tragic and bloody ancient battlefield. Every cultivator who heard the drumbeat could not control their bloodlines and began to restless and even fervent. He Dan and Chi Yu, who were watching from afar, even felt their hearts being affected. They began to beat continuously along with the drumbeats in midair. The more intense the sound of the war drums was, the faster their hearts were beating. Among the 5 people watching, Golden Feather of the Vantage Firmament Immortal domain was the first to realize that something was amiss and circulated his secret skill right away to defend against the sound. Nai Hun of the Jade Firmament Immortal domain seemed to have sensed something as well. Suddenly, his ears were pressed tightly against the side of his face. Right then, Lang Qianqian's sound domain secret skill sounded. This sound was completely different from Ying Tian's. It was like a trickle that was endless and reverberated in one's ears. However, Su Zimo's dragon roar was different from the prince and princess. The dragon roar contained endless might and exploded in everyone's ears and hearts like thunderbolts. Suddenly, its power was released with an extremely terrifying destructive power. The 3 top-tier sound domain secret skills collided. Su Zimo, Ying Tian, and Lang Qianqian had strong foundations and combat strength, so none of them suffered much of an impact. However, He Dan and Chi Yu could not withstand the pincer attack of the 3 sound domain secret skills and collapse. In a few breaths, their blood qi deteriorated. Against the envelopment of the 3 sound domain secret skills, the 2 of them could not even reconstruct their hearts. It was equivalent to losing more than half of their combat strength as they staggered and retreated hurriedly. Due to the fact that they were grade 5 heaven immortals and were prepared, Nai Hun and Golden Feather could still hold out. The blue-robed boy was only a grade 1 heaven immortal. He released some unknown method and managed to survive the pincer attack of the 3 sound domain secret skills, but his face was a little pale. He retreated in the direction of He Tan and Chi Yu. Under the protection of Su Zimo's dragon roar, Lin Luo did not suffer any impact and obtained the 9 orifices yang reversion pill almost completely unharmed. As for Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian, they lost their chance after being blocked by Su Zimo for a moment. Ying Tian's expression was terrible. Ever since he started cultivating, he had almost never encountered any setbacks. On the one hand, it was because he was indeed extremely talented and his combat strength was heaven-defying. On the other hand, no one in the Purple Firmament Immortal domain dared to truly provoke him. That was the reason why he was invincible and had never tasted defeat. But now, he was stopped by a grade 4 heaven immortal that appeared out of nowhere in this Jade Pure Palace. Su Zimo, you've already angered me. Ying Tian's gaze was cold as he said slowly, there's nothing I can't get my hands on. Anyone who fights with me for it will have to die. You and that lowlife, Lin Luo, will both have to die here today. Ying Tian's killing intent was completely triggered. Right then, the third door opened and happened to be not far away from Golden Feather and Nai Hun. Without hesitation, the two of them barged in. Initially, Ying Tian wanted to attack Su Zimo. However, he recalled that there might be other treasures in the third hall and let go of his killing intent for the time being, charging into the third hall as well. Su Zimo and Lin Luo exchanged glances and charged over as well. Thank you for your help, fellow Daoist Su. Lin Luo cupped her fists and sent a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. Although she did not know why Su Zimo would help her, she would definitely not have been able to obtain the 9 Orifices Yang Reversion Pill without his help. The 9 Orifices Yang Reversion Pill is a top king-grade immortal pill. I wonder if it can heal father's injuries. No matter what, as long as there's a chance, I have to take it back for father to give it a try. Just as Lin Luo was thinking about things, Su Zimo suddenly stuffed a storage bag to her. Lin Luo received it instinctively. Su Zimo sent a voice transmission. There's a Soraka fruit inside that can heal essence spirit injuries. You can take it back for Senior Human Emperor to try. Soraka fruit. Lin Luo was shocked when she heard those words. The value of the Soraka fruit was not inferior to the 9 Orifices Yang Reversion Pill that she had just obtained. Back then, when she heard that cracks appeared in Avicii and someone escaped, she and her brother wanted to head to Avicii to look for the Soraka fruit. However, they were stopped by their mother. Her mother said that there was something strange about Avicii. The matter was extremely strange and there was probably something else at work, refusing to let them go no matter what. Her mother was extremely precise in many things. Most of the time, even her father had to obey her mother's wishes. Naturally, Lin Luo and her brother did not dare to disobey. Indeed, before long, something major happened to Avicii. Cultivators from all over the upper world were trapped within. In the end, even 8 heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries were buried within. It was tragic. Lin Luo had not expected that someone would be able to take out a Soraka fruit. More than that, she had not expected that this cultivator she had met by chance would stuff such a precious thing into her hands. Right then, the two of them charged into the third hall as well. Lin Luo had many questions in her mind, but now was not the time. She expressed her thanks and put away the storage bag containing the Soraka fruit first. There were still 9 balls of light floating in the third hall. The 6 of them entered the place one after another and swept their gazes across. Almost all of them glared at a ball of light with burning eyes. Within the ball of light was a bead the size of a fingernail. Its surface was uneven and extremely rough, but it emitted a divine glow. The bead seemed to possess a mysterious power and every cultivator that looked at it felt as though they were enlightened. The utmost treasure of the Buddhist monasteries, body seed. Legend has it that Buddha comprehended the Tao under the body tree. As for cultivators, if they could wield the body seeds and unlock their wisdom, they could easily comprehend some obscure dharmic Tao and comprehend the Tao and secret skills with half the effort. However, body seeds were extremely rare. Back when Buddha obtained the Tao and nourished the body tree, he only created dozens of them. Up till this point, it was almost impossible to find one. The 6 of them had not expected that there would be a body seed in the Jade Pure Hall. Chapter 2400, 2400 Top Showdown. 2400 Top Showdown. The appearance of the body seed tempted everyone. For Su Zimo, it was imperative that he obtained the body seed. The body seed was an utmost treasure of the Buddhist monasteries. The taboo mystic classic that he cultivated, the Prajna Nirvana Sutra, was also a dharmic Tao of the Buddhist monasteries. There were still some sutras and secret skills in the taboo mystic classic that he had yet to comprehend completely. With the help of the body seed, he had a chance of comprehending the Prajna Nirvana Sutra completely, allowing his essence spirit to break through once more. Right now, he was only a grade 4 heaven immortal. However, his essence spirit realm had already reached the level of a grade 6 heaven immortal. If he could comprehend the Prajna Nirvana Sutra completely and fuse the Dragon Phoenix essence spirit and Green Lotus essence spirit perfectly, his essence spirit realm might advance another level and reach the level of a grade 7 heaven immortal. For his essence spirit to surpass his physical cultivation by 3 minor realms, that was extremely terrifying. Throughout history, there were not many people who could do that. More importantly, after obtaining the body seed, it would be easier for him to comprehend the Dharmic Tao and his cultivation speed would increase as well. The fight for the heaven ranking of the divine firmament immortal domain was getting closer and time was extremely important for Su Zimo. The opponents of the heaven ranking would definitely be much more troublesome to deal with than the paragons of the earth ranking. Among them was the rare monster incarnate, Yun Ting. If the difference in cultivation realm between them was too great, it would be difficult for Su Zimo to win no matter how many trump cards he had. The body seed was equally attractive to the others. Almost at the same time, the 6 of them charged towards the body seed and released their divine powers, secret skills, and dharmic treasures, wanting to seize the initiative. If they could obtain the body seed, they could even give up on the pure jade manual. Star-plucking hand. Incinerating firmament boiling sea. Firmament/steel cavalry. Supreme divine powers burst forth one after another and collided in midair with a deafening bang. The grade 5 heaven immortal of the jade firmament immortal domain, Nai Hun, was the first to not be able to withstand it. He spat out blood and retreated from the aftershock of the supreme divine powers. Although the other grade 5 heaven immortal, Golden Feather, was still on the battlefield, his true form was forced out. It was a 3D golden crow that burned with golden flame. Boom. When Prince Ying Tian saw that the situation was tense, he released his bloodline phenomenon right away. Behind him, a gigantic phantom appeared. Although its face was blurry, it exuded endless might. Around the tall phantom stood 12 golden-armored giants with gigantic swords. All of them had cold expressions and murderous auras. Boom. Lang Qianqian released her bloodline phenomenon without hesitation as well. Behind her, a cloud appeared and a gigantic palace appeared faintly in the depths. It had 5 cities, 12 towers, and was majestic. Against the impact of the bloodline phenomenons of the prince and princess, Golden Feather could not withstand it and was defeated. Although he was a 3D golden crow and his bloodline was strong, it was inferior to the emperor bloodline of Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian. Furthermore, his cultivation was 2 minor realms weaker than the 2 of them and the difference in strength was immense. How dare a puny bird try to lay its hands on the body seed? When he saw that, Ying Tian burst into laughter in a brazen manner. This time round, Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian had an extremely tacit understanding. Without any interaction, they joined forces, wanting to suppress Su Zimo and Lin Luo first. Su Zimo was a grade 4 heaven immortal. He was a full 3 minor realms lower than Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian. If the 2 of them were only ordinary heaven immortals, Su Zimo would definitely be able to suppress them if he released all his trump cards. But now, he was facing the 2 strongest monster incarnates of the same cultivation realm in the 9 firmament immortal domain. Coupled with the green lotus true body, Su Zimo was wary and could not release his bloodline phenomenon. Even if he released all his other trump cards, it would be difficult for him to surpass the prince and princess who were 3 minor realms above him in terms of strength. The pressure on Su Zimo increased exponentially when Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian attacked without holding back. Go and get the body seed. I'll try my best to defend against them for 3 breath. Right then, Lin Luo's figure flashed and she shielded Su Zimo, sending a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness. Roar. Lin Luo channeled her bloodline to its limits as well as 9 divine dragons appeared behind her. Back then, Su Zimo obtained the legacy secret skill of the human emperor, the ancient dragonification art, and could create a divine dragon that coiled behind his back. Now, Lin Luo's bloodline phenomenon was clearly showing signs of the ancient dragonification art. However, it was even more terrifying and evolved into 9 divine dragons. Although Lin Luo looked like a young girl, the fact that she had 9 divine dragons coiling around her revealed her might as a paragon. This bloodline phenomenon was not disadvantaged against Ying Tian or Lang Qianqian's bloodline phenomenons. However, Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian were 2 people after all. Furthermore, Lin Luo's cultivation realm was only at the grade 6 heaven immortal realm. She was a level lower than the 2 of them. A single bloodline phenomenon was not enough. 3 heads 6 arms. Lin Luo released her supreme divine power and summoned 4 dharmic treasures at the same time. With her free hands, she rapidly conjured a secret skill and condensed it in front of her. A mysterious 8 trigrams diagram appeared. Qian, Kuan, Zun, Zhen, Kan, Li, Zhen and Dui 8 completely different powers appeared in a diagram in an unfathomable manner. Su Zimo had just helped her obtain the 9 orifices yang reversion pill and given her a Soraka fruit. Lin Luo was grateful and almost released all her trump cards this time round without holding back. Su Zimo did not hesitate either and hollered softly with a bright gaze. 6 Tusk Divine Strength. His strength increased exponentially after he released that innate divine power. 3 heads 6 arms. At the same time, after that foundation, Su Zimo released the same supreme divine power as well. He only had a chance to comprehend 3 heads 6 arms after the human emperor released it once in the lower worlds and fought against the emperors of the foreign races. Su Zimo held the Trinity Auspicious Jade in one hand, the Primordial Unity Horsetail Whip in another and a fiery red fan in one more. His other 3 free arms rapidly conjured secret skills. Everyone comprehended different supreme divine powers. Coupled with the limitation of time, energy, and various other reasons, there was a limit to the number of supreme divine powers one could comprehend. For example, Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian had not comprehended 3 heads 6 arms. However, Su Zimo and Lin Luo had not comprehended the other supreme divine powers that the two of them comprehended either. Kill! Ying Tian shouted and waved his arm in front of him. The 12 golden-armored giants around the phantom behind him suddenly charged out. Wielding gigantic swords, they surrounded Lin Luo and Su Zimo. Suppress! The ethereal palace behind Lang Qianqian suppressed Lin Luo and Su Zimo as well. Boom! 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 Lin Luo's 9 divine dragons were the first to clash and fought against the 12 golden-armored giants in a tragic battle. At the same time, her 8 trigrams diagram collided head-on with the ethereal palace and let out a loud bang. The 8 trigrams diagram nearly collapsed. As a prince and princess, the bloodline phenomenons of Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian were way too strong. In just a single breath, Lin Luo's 9 dragons and 8 trigrams diagram were crushed and turned into streams of blood chi that dissipated into the world. She waved her 6 arms and summoned her dharmic treasures, wanting to defend against Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian for a moment. However, the two of them joined forces and knocked down Lin Luo's dharmic treasures in the blink of an eye, charging in with ease. Initially, Lin Luo thought that she could defend against Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian for 3 breaths and give Su Zimo a chance to collect the body seed. But now, Lin Luo could no longer hold out after just 2 breaths while Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian had already closed in. Chapter 2401, 2401 Assassination. 2401 Assassination. Roar. Right then, another resounding dragon roar sounded behind Lin Luo. It penetrated metal and cracked rocks as 9 divine dragons tore through the air with a torrential aura. The 9 dragons phenomenon that Lin Luo conjured had already been destroyed by the 12 golden-armored giants. Right now, the 9 divine dragons were formed from the 9 dragons on the Trinity Auspicious Jade. Su Zimo did not abandon Lin Luo and snatch the body seed. Instead, he chose to help. The 9 divine dragons charged towards the 12 golden-armored giants. At the same time, a gigantic turtle shell appeared. The patterns and ravines on it shone with a blinding and mysterious light as it shielded Lin Luo. Su Zimo's other innate divine power, the Spirit Turtle Shield. Boom! The ethereal palace descended and suppressed the turtle shell with a loud bang. The turtle shell trembled continuously and flickered. It was clear that it could not hold on. Right then, Su Zimo waved the fiery red feather fan in his hands and injected heaven and earth essence chi, slapping Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian. Phew! The fan descended and scorching flames burst forth. The flames surged into the skies, forming a firestorm that engulfed Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian instantly. Extinguish! Ying Tian's blood chi surged and purple chi surrounded him. He removed a string of jade-white prayer beads on his wrist and circulated his secret skill, shouting, The prayer beads spun continuously and suddenly transformed into a vast tsunami that collided with the surrounding raging flamestorm, evaporating everything into a gigantic fog. Ying Tian's prayer beads were made from the bones of immortal whales and were unfathomable. They could even evolve into oceans and immortal whales. Condense! Ying Tian shouted softly. The raging flamestorm collided with the tsunami and the mist condensed continuously. In the blink of an eye, a living being with a terrifying aura appeared in midair. The body of the living being was way too massive and almost burst the entire palace. An immortal whale descended with a shocking might and charged towards Lin Luo and Su Zimo. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit in an unhurried manner and injected the unique essence spirit power of the dragon phoenix essence spirit into the fan in his hands. This was a dharmic treasure that Su Zimo chose from the Yang Immortal Kingdom after obtaining the top of the Earth ranking, the Seven Tails Phoenix Feather Fan. This dharmic treasure was originally a pure Yang spirit treasure. However, it was severely damaged and its cultivation realm fell. Its power was no longer the same as before. In the Parasol Tree secret ground of the Yang Immortal Kingdom, Su Zimo made use of the power of the Parasol Tree formation to repair the Seven Tails Phoenix Feather Fan. Although it was still not at the level of a pure Yang spirit treasure, it could already unleash terrifying might. In order to unleash the power of the Seven Tails Phoenix Feather Fan, one would require the power of the divine phoenix race. Therefore, although this dharmic treasure had a powerful background, no one chose it until Su Zimo appeared. Half of Su Zimo's essence spirit was the dragon phoenix essence spirit. The power he could release was even purer and stronger than the power of the divine phoenix race. Su Zimo waved the Seven Tails Phoenix Feather Fan once more. Screech! The moment the fan descended, the sound of a phoenix's cry sounded in midair. Immediately after, under the Seven Tails Phoenix Feather Fan, a phoenix that was burning with flames flew out and charged towards the immortal whale in midair. Among the 10,000 races, the collision of two top-tier living beings was earth-shaking. As Su Zimo released those trump cards, he waved the horsetail whip in his hands. The 3,000 threads were extremely sentient and tore through the layers of space, extending continuously. In the blink of an eye, they arrived beside the body seed and returned the way they came. Although he could not leave, he could make use of the dharmic treasure in his hands to seize the initiative and snatch the body seed. Right then, a warning flashed in Su Zimo's mind. Swoosh! A cold light appeared behind him without warning and stabbed towards the back of his head. If that cold light pierced down, it could pierce Su Zimo's consciousness instantly and kill his essence spirit. The moment this person attacked, it was a killing move that was fatal. The timing of the attacker was extremely ingenious. This was the most intense moment of the fight between Ying Tian, Lang Qianqian, Su Zimo, and Lin Luo. Both parties had released multiple divine powers and secret skills in succession. Right now, they were at their weakest and had no time to be distracted. Su Zimo was not surprised and had a calm expression. He was still controlling the primordial unity horsetail whip to pull the body seed over, as though he did not notice the killing intent behind him. Watch out! From the corner of her eye, Lin Luo caught sight of what was happening and reminded hurriedly. She was entangled by Lang Qianqian and could not escape at all. Lin Luo's voice was still a tad slower. The moment she warned him, the cold light had already landed on the back of Su Zimo's head. Clang! When the cold light landed on it, the sound of metal clashing echoed instead of breaking through his flesh, brain, and bones. Immediately after, ripples appeared in the void not far away. A short and skinny figure appeared with a sharp sword in his hands. It was the blue-robed boy with the lowest cultivation realm among the 9 of them. When the 9 of them appeared here, the blue-robed boy was only a grade 1 heaven immortal. The difference in strength between him and the others was immense and no one cared about him. Nobody expected the blue-robed boy to suddenly appear and even dare to attack Su Zimo. He's not a grade 1 heaven immortal, but a grade 7 heaven immortal. Golden Feather and Nai Hun, who were watching from the sidelines, could not help but exclaim when they detected the blue-robed boy's cultivation realm. The blue-robed boy was clearly proficient in assassination and concealment. A grade 7 heaven immortal assassin might not be strong in head-on combat, but he might be able to assassinate a grade 8 or even a grade 9 heaven immortal. It had to be said that the blue-robed boy's concealment had indeed deceived everyone. Even Suzimo had not noticed him. However, no matter how the blue-robed boy hid his tracks, he could not hide from his spirit perception. The moment Suzimo exchanged blows with Ying Tian, he sensed that there was a terrifying expert hidden in the surroundings who was clearly hostile towards him. Therefore, Suzimo was long prepared. On the surface, he was holding the Trinity Auspicious Jade, the Primordial Horsetail Whip, the Trinity Auspicious Jade and the 7 Phoenix Feather Fan only. However, in reality, he had already secretly released the 9 Heavens Living Soil and was prepared to deal with any unexpected situations. Indeed, when the blue-robed boy stabbed over, Suzimo merely used his spirit consciousness and the 9 Heavens Living Soil appeared behind his head, forming a yellow sand barrier. No matter how sharp the blue-robed boy's sword was, it could not break through the 9 Heavens Living Soil. Earlier on, when I saw this lad retreat to the hall where we came from, I did not think too much about it and thought that he was looking for He Dan and Chi Yu. Nai-hun said in a deep voice, by the looks of it, He Tan and Chi Yu have most likely been killed by him. The blue-robed boy wanted to escape far away after failing to kill Suzimo. However, Suzimo's heart was already filled with killing intent. If such a dangerous assassin were to stay in the Jade Pure Hall, he would be a huge threat. Suzimo was prepared to seize the opportunity to kill this threat completely. Since you want to assassinate me, don't leave. Suzimo turned to look at the blurry figure of the blue-robed boy who was about to disappear and said coldly. Chapter 2402, 24021 against 2. 24021 against 2. Sensing Suzimo's killing intent, the blue-robed boy was not afraid. In fact, he felt that it was ridiculous. He was a grade 7 heaven immortal and was of the same cultivation realm as Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian. Although his combat strength was far inferior to the two of them, a grade 4 heaven immortal was not a threat to him. Don't be angry. The blue-robed boy snickered. You're lucky this time round. I won't fail next time. Don't worry, you won't be alone in hell. He Tan and Chi Yu are already waiting for you there. Indeed. The moment the blue-robed boy appeared to assassinate him, Suzimo had already guessed that He Dan and Chi Yu were most likely doomed. Suzimo glared at the blue-robed boy who was gradually disappearing and made a swift plan. Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian's attacks were ferocious. Suzimo and Lin Luo joined forces and released many divine powers and secret skills, but they could not hold on for long. He had to kill the blue-robed boy as quickly as possible. Swoosh! In a flash, Suzimo vanished from the spot. When he appeared, he was already behind the blue-robed boy. Closing his fingers, he conjured a sword art and tapped the back of the latter's head. The blue-robed boy's expression changed slightly. Sensing the killing intent behind him, his reaction was extremely fast as well as he released his teleportation technique and vanished from the spot. Hihi, you're too slow. The blue-robed boy chuckled. Suddenly, as though he sensed something, the blue-robed boy released his movement technique secret skill hurriedly and shifted dozens of feet to the side. Right beside where he was standing earlier on, Suzimo appeared once more. Waving his hand, he slashed and missed. If he had reacted slower, he would have been sliced into two by Suzimo. It's not teleportation. The blue-robed boy frowned. The moment that thought flashed through his mind, the blue-robed boy's pupils constricted and Suzimo vanished once more. He did not have time to think and dodged hurriedly. Indeed. Suzimo reappeared not far away from him. Swash, swash, swash. Suzimo's figure disappeared continuously and reappeared. Each time it appeared, it would definitely pose a huge threat to the blue-robed boy. Part of the reason why the blue-robed boy could avoid danger repeatedly was because his cultivation was indeed not weak. At the same time, it was because he had cultivated the Tao of assassination and was even sharper towards danger. Even so, his space to dodge decreased. By the time Suzimo's figure disappeared for the 7th time and reappeared, the blue-robed boy had nowhere to run. That was the power of the true Dragon 9 flashes. At grade 4 Heaven Immortal Realm, Suzimo could already release this secret skill 7 times in succession, causing immense threat and pressure to the blue-robed boy. When he saw that he could not dodge, the blue-robed boy's gaze was sinister as he slashed in reverse towards Suzumo's glabella. Suzumo extended his palm that was filled with the 9 heavens living soil. He reached out and grabbed the sword. Sizzle. The sword streaked across the 9 heavens living soil and sparks flew. It was an ear-piercing sound. The blue-robed boy channeled his blood chi and released all his strength. However, the sword could not break free from Suzumo's palm, let alone pierce his consciousness. Finally, a look of panic flashed through the blue-robed boy's eyes. He specialized in assassination and concealment techniques and could not release much combat strength in a head-on battle. But now that he was suppressed by Suzumo's true Dragon 9 flashes, he had nowhere to hide and could only accept the fight. The moment they exchanged blows, the blue-robed boy sensed how terrifying Suzumo was. He had almost no chance of winning in a head-on battle. The blue-robed boy made a judgment instantly and condensed his spirit consciousness without hesitation. Without saying anything, he released his Essence Spirit secret skill. In his opinion, even if the Essence Spirit secret skill could not kill Suzumo, it would severely injure him. As long as Suzumo's Essence Spirit was injured, his combat strength would definitely be greatly affected and he could escape successfully. At that time, Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian would be able to kill Suzumo without him even making a move. The blue-robed boy had a good idea. However, he knew too little about Suzumo and did not realize the consequences of releasing his Essence Spirit secret skill. When Suzumo sensed the blue-robed boy releasing his Essence Spirit secret skill, he did not hesitate and released his Essence Spirit secret skill as well, reverse scale. His Essence Spirit realm was already at the peak of a grade 6 heaven immortal to begin with. After releasing the 6-tusk divine strength, the power of his Essence Spirit had already reached the peak of a grade 7 heaven immortal. The release of the reverse scale was almost devastating for the blue-robed boy. The moment the 2 Essence Spirit secret skills collided, the blue-robed boy's expression changed starkly. As though he was struck by lightning, he shuddered and his eyes dimmed instantly. The blue-robed boy spat out a mouthful of blood. Anyone who touched the reverse scale of a dragon would die. Although the blue-robed boy did not die on the spot, cracks had already appeared on his Essence Spirit and it could collapse at any moment. Suzumo did not give him any chance to catch his breath. He took a step forward and tapped the blue-robed boy on the glabella with his sword. Poof! A sword chi burst forth and pierced his head instantly. His Essence Spirit was destroyed and he died. Suzumo put away the blue-robed boy's storage bag. At the same time, Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian had already broken through the obstruction of the 9 divine dragons, Spirit Turtle Shield and Divine Phoenixes and arrived once more. Lin Luo was forced to retreat in defeat and had already arrived beside Suzumo. Suzumo, hand over the body seed. Ying Tian shouted with a divine might that was unparalleled. Without hesitation, Suzumo did not disperse the sword art in his hands and slashed in reverse. The heaven-slaying sword chi was released. Thousands of heaven-slaying sword chi burst forth and surged over. It was a vast expanse of white and killing intent shook the skies, as though it wanted to devour Ying Tian. At the same time, Suzumo conjured another sword art with his other hand and slashed down at Lang Qianqian. Suzumo fought 1 against 2 with a torrential aura. Countless stars appeared in the firmaments in a chaotic manner and even began to collapse. The ground shook and cracks appeared one after another as scorching lava spewed out. A gigantic soaring serpent broke out of the ground. Above the firmaments, endless killing intent condensed into a divine dragon that charged towards Lang Qianqian. When the heaven and earth slaying sword arts were released at the same time, the ground shook and the weather changed. Heaven slaying sword art? Earth slaying sword art? Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian were from emperor lineages and were experienced and knowledgeable. They recognized the origin of the 2 sword arts right away and exclaimed. Those 2 sword arts were probably the only ones in the world that could cause such a huge commotion. Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian did not dare to be careless and released their divine powers and secret skills hurriedly to defend against the 2 sword arts. Instantly, sword chi streaked through the hall and essence chi surged as divine powers spread. Golden Feather and Nai Hun were dumbfounded and shocked. Neither of them expected that Prince Yingtian and Princess Lung Qianqian, who had the highest cultivation realms, would be stopped by the combined forces of a Grade 4 Heaven Immortal and a Grade 6 Heaven Immortal. The prince and princess usually fought above their levels and killed their opponents. How could they have had such an experience? Lin Luo's parents were experts of the heavenly world after all. It was understandable for her to possess such methods. However, what about that Grade 4 Heaven Immortal? What was his background? A mere Grade 4 Heaven Immortal of Heaven and Earth Academy could actually fight evenly against the prince and princess who were Grade 7 Heaven Immortals. Chapter 2403, 2403 Sound of the Twilight Drum. 2403 Sound of the Twilight Drum. Boom, boom, boom. Before victory was decided between the four of them, the door to another hall opened not far away. Su Zimo had already obtained the body seed and killed the blue-robed boy to retrieve his storage bag. He had benefited immensely and there was no need for him to get entangled with Yingtian and Lang Qianqian here. Let's leave first. He sent a voice transmission to Lin Luo's spirit consciousness and glanced at the hall not far away. It was clear that the immortal emperor of the past had left much more treasures than these in the Jade Pure Palace. At the very least, there were no clues to the Jade Pure Jade manual in the few halls right now. Lin Luo was quick to react. Although Su Zimo did not explain anything, she reacted immediately and charged towards the hall not far away without fighting. Apart from the body seed, there were 8 other treasures in the hall. Although the 8 treasures could not compare to the body seed, they were still rare treasures. However, Su Zimo and Lin Luo had even greater ambitions. They abandoned the 8 treasures and headed to the next hall. Unexpectedly, the next hall should still contain mystical treasures left behind by the immortal emperor. Yingtian and Lang Qianqian were stunned for a moment. They looked at the 8 balls of light floating around the hall and hesitated. Given their combat strength, no one would be able to stop them if they obtained the 8 treasures. Golden Feather and Nai Hun were of no threat to them at all. However, the 8 treasures were scattered all over the hall and it would definitely take some time to collect them. Su Zimo and Lin Luo had already seized the initiative to charge into the next hall. If they wasted time on the 8 treasures, there was a high chance that Su Zimo and Lin Luo would take the treasures in the next hall for themselves. If the final Jade Pure Jade manual was among the treasures in the next hall, they would suffer a huge loss. At that thought, Yingtian moved and ignored the 8 treasures in the hall, chasing after Su Zimo and Lin Luo at full speed. Lang Qianqian could also weigh the pros and cons of this and made a decision quickly. She sped forward and followed closely behind Yingtian. With that, Nai Hun and Golden Feather benefited instead. The two of them exchanged glances and moved immediately, charging towards the treasures in the hall. The hall was extremely spacious and a mere glance could be seen. In the middle of the hall hovered a talisman that emitted a purple glow. Unlike the previous few halls, apart from this talisman, there was nothing else here. In the face of the talisman that was less than the size of a palm, Su Zimo and Lin Luo's essence spirits felt an irresistible pressure. One could imagine how precious this talisman was for the immortal emperor to place it in this hall alone. Unexpectedly, this talisman was at least a king-grade talisman and might even be at the emperor grade. Supreme Pure Purple Cloud Talisman. Right then, Yingtian's voice sounded behind them. Yingtian and Lang Qianqian had already arrived. So, it's that talisman. It's no wonder why it has such an impact on the essence spirit. Lin Luo murmured softly. Thereafter, when she saw Su Zimo's puzzled expression, she explained softly, back then, this immortal emperor was also a talisman grandmaster. He condensed the dharmic Tao of the Supreme Pure Jade manual onto a talisman. It's a killing talisman specifically targeted at essence spirits and is extremely terrifying. In the past, countless kings died to this Supreme Pure Purple Cloud Talisman. I heard that even the essence spirits of emperors could not withstand it and were severely injured. Su Zimo was secretly alarmed. It was a killing weapon that could kill immortal kings and even severely injure emperors. Of course, one's cultivation had to reach a certain realm to release an immortal talisman of this level. If everyone present obtained this immortal talisman, They would not be able to activate it even if they released it forcefully. Before they could kill their foes, their essence spirits would not be able to withstand it and would collapse on the spot, killing themselves. Even so, the supreme pure purple cloud talisman was a priceless treasure. Almost at the same time, Su Zimo, Lin Luo, Ying Tian, and Lang Qianqian moved and charged towards the center of the hall. Everyone was less than 1,000 feet away from the center of the hall and could arrive in the blink of an eye. Dong. Before everyone could charge far, the sound of a drum rumbled. The sound of the drum appeared extremely suddenly and reverberated through the empty hall. The lingering sound lingered endlessly. The four of them paused in their tracks at almost the same time. They had grim expressions as they sensed the changes in their bodies carefully. My lifespan decreased by 10,000 years. Su Zimo frowned slightly. The sound of the drum resembled his time is like a saber. However, the power produced did not seem obvious and was still within his tolerance. Su Zimo swept his gaze and judged from the expressions of Lin Luo and the other two that their lifespans should have decreased due to the impact of the drumbeat as well. It should be the sound of the twilight drum. Lin Luo whispered. Su Zimo asked, "What do you mean?" Lin Luo explained, "The Dao title of this immortal emperor is Dawn Twilight because he possesses two emperor weapons, the Dawn Bell and Twilight Drum. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight had extremely deep attainments in the Dao of Time. Furthermore, he fused it into his sound domain and created the supreme power, Bell Drum Harmonization, back when he was a heaven immortal. The sound of the bell could reverse time while the sound of the drum could cause time to be lost. Our lifespans decreased when we heard the sound of the drum earlier on. That should be caused by the dharmic Tao of the twilight drum." Suddenly, Su Zimo was enlightened. In that case, the sound of the twilight drum was indeed similar to his time divine powers. However, the power of the twilight drum did not seem to be comparable to time is like a saber, let alone fleeting moment. At that moment, the drumbeat had already vanished, but everyone's lifespan that was reduced earlier on had vanished completely without recovering. So, the test of this place is the twilight drum? Ying Tian smirked confidently and declared proudly, "Watch me dispel the sound of the twilight drum." Before his sentence was finished, Ying Tian charged towards the center of the hall once more. Ying Tian released his divine powers and secret skills as he advanced. In the blink of an eye, he crossed 100 feet. Dong. Indeed. A second drumbeat sounded. Ying Tian stopped in his tracks and frowned. Apart from Ying Tian, Su Zimo and the other two did not hear the sound of the drum. However, when Su Zimo and the other two moved and continued forward, they heard the second drumbeat at the same time. During this process, Su Zimo, Lin Luo, and Lang Qianqian released their divine powers and secret skills to defend against the sound of the drums. In fact, Su Zimo even secretly released Fleeting Moment. However, his lifespan decreased once more when he heard the second drumbeat. This time round, it was reduced by 20,000 years. The lifespan of a heaven immortal was more than 300,000 years. A reduction of 10,000 or 20,000 years was not much of a threat to Su Zimo and the others. However, the sound of the twilight drum could ignore the divine powers and secret skills of the four of them and augment them, reducing their lifespans. That was truly strange. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight, if you want me to retreat just because of this, I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. Suddenly, Ying Tian burst into laughter in a heroic manner. It's fine to lose this bit of lifespan. I can still afford it. With that said, he moved once more and sped forward. Dong. A third drumbeat sounded. Ying Tian shuddered and stopped in his tracks once more. The smile from earlier on had long vanished and his gaze flickered. His expression was dark and ugly. Chapter 2404, 2404 Cruelty of Time. 2404 Cruelty of Time. Su Zimo and the other two moved and continued forward. Dong. The three of them stopped in their tracks when they heard the third drumbeat. Su Zimo frowned slightly and closed his eyes, sensing the changes in his body. A third drumbeat sounded and his lifespan was reduced once more. However, this time round, it was 30,000 years. Initially, everyone was about 1,000 feet away from the center of the hall. But now, The four of them had only advanced 300 feet when they heard 3 drumbeats. Every single drumbeat would reduce one's lifespan. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 years. Although it did not seem like much of an impact, according to the pattern, the lifespan reduction by the time everyone crossed 700 feet would add up to close to 300,000 years. In other words, even if everyone's lifespans were exhausted, they would not be able to obtain the supreme pure purple cloud talisman. The four of them stood on the spot and did not continue forward rashly. Right now, the four of them had already lost 60,000 years of lifespan. If they continued forward, the fourth drumbeat would reduce their lifespans by 40,000 years. That was a total of 100,000 years. That was a loss that was difficult for anyone present to endure. Although the supreme pure purple cloud talisman was a priceless treasure, the price they had to pay was way too great. More importantly, even if they gave up all their lifespans, none of them might be able to obtain this talisman. Against such a situation, anyone would have to weigh the pros and cons carefully. Right then, Nai-hun and Golden Feather arrived as well. When they saw Suzimo's group of 4 standing motionlessly on the spot, a look of surprise and confusion flashed through their eyes. After hesitating for a moment, the 2 of them advanced carefully. There were no other dangers in the hall and the 2 of them crossed 300 feet before long. Similarly, they heard 3 drumbeats and their lifespans were reduced by 60,000 years. So, this is the test of Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. Golden Feather could tell what was going on as well and murmured softly. Suddenly, Nai-hun smiled with a mocking expression and said coolly, "Why don't you guys dare to advance?" Ying Tian said coldly, "All right. Since everyone is agreeable to it, I won't stand on courtesy." Nai-hun cupped his fists and sped forward in a flash. In the blink of an eye, he crossed another 100 feet. Dong! He heard the 4th drumbeat. His lifespan was reduced by 40,000 years. He was originally 80,000 years old and could be considered as one of the younger ones among the Heaven Immortals. But now, he had lost a full 100,000 years of lifespan and was already 180,000 years old after merely crossing 300 feet. Nai-hun took a deep breath with a calm expression. His choice to advance this time round was actually a huge gamble. That was because he was certain that since Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight left such a test, there would definitely be a way to break out of the situation. There was no way he would let them die just like that. Otherwise, the test would be meaningless. Nai-hun guessed that there was a high chance that Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight was testing everyone's courage. The only way he could pass the test and obtain the supreme pure purple cloud talisman was through courage and indomitable spirit. At that thought, Nai-hun was resolute and continued forward, crossing another 100 feet. He was only 500 feet away from the center of the hall. At the same time, a 5th drumbeat sounded. Nai-hun could clearly sense that he had lost 50,000 years of his lifespan. He was already 230,000 years old. He was only 70,000 years away from the limit of 300,000 years of lifespan for Heaven Immortals. Nai-hun's expression darkened and his initial conviction began to waver. Was I wrong? Nai-hun was hesitant and did not dare to advance or retreat for a long time. If he took another step forward, he would lose 60,000 years of his lifespan when the 6th drumbeat sounded. At that time, he would be 290,000 years old and would be in his twilight years. It would be too late. However, if he returned the way he came, he would not be able to recover the lifespan he lost either. In other words, 150,000 years of lifespan was wasted just like that. Nai-hun was indignant. "Fufu, why aren't you continuing?" Right then, Ying Tian chuckled. "If you're afraid, retreat obediently. Why are you forcing yourself?" Lin Luo shook her head when she heard that. Ying Tian's words were equivalent to sealing Nai-hun's escape path completely. Indeed, when he heard Ying Tian's mockery, Nai-hun's blood chi surged. With an indignant expression, he harumphed coldly and charged forward. Dong! The 6th drumbeat sounded. Right in front of Lin Luo and the others, a shocking change happened to Nai-hun. In that short distance of 100 feet, everyone watched as Nai-hun transformed from a cultivator at his peak to a white-haired old man in his twilight years. The impact of time was extremely cruel. Ying Tian, Lang Qianxian, and the others felt relieved. Thankfully, they did not advance rashly. Otherwise, they would have ended up in the same state as Nai Hun. Nai Hun stood on the spot and looked at his white hair that hung down. Lowering his head, he stared at his old and skinny hands with a lost gaze that was filled with struggle and indignance. Why? Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight, are you leaving such a test so that we can die? What's the point of such a test? Nai Hun stood on the spot and roared loudly, his voice reverberating through the empty hall. Ying Tian smiled. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight did not ask you to die. You were the one who overestimated yourself and wanted to die. Lang Qianxian nodded as well. The test in this hall was most probably not prepared for heaven immortals. According to my calculations, one's lifespan must exceed 500,000 years if they want to obtain the supreme pure purple cloud talisman. Even perfected immortals won't be able to do it. I'm afraid only immortal kings can do it. I don't believe it. Nai Hun used the last of his strength and roared. He no longer had a way out. Even if he returned the way he came, he was in his twilight years and only had a year left to live. He could only continue forward and hope for a miracle. Nai Hun walked forward. The seventh drumbeat sounded and Nai Hun's eyes dimmed. His essence spirit was destroyed and his lifespan was depleted. He collapsed in the hall with his life severed. Nai Hun's death destroyed the last hope in the hearts of Ying Tian and the others. Actually, Ying Tian and the others had the same guess initially. Since this was a test left behind by Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight, it should not be a dead end and there should be a chance of survival. But now that Nai Hun was dead, Ying Tian and the others gave up completely and retreated. Although they lost 60,000 years of lifespan, they managed to survive at the very least. Fellow Daoist Su, let's retreat too. Lin Luo looked at Su Zimo beside her. During this period of time earlier on, Su Zimo stood on the spot motionlessly and remained silent the entire time. His eyes were closed, as though his mind was elsewhere and he was deep in thought. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly opened his eyes. As though he understood something, he moved and headed towards the center of the hall. Fellow Daoist, be careful. Lin Luo was alarmed and reminded hurriedly. Ying Tian and the others noticed Su Zimo's actions as well. All of them had different expressions. He, another person who wants to die. Golden Feather pouted and sneered. Greedy. He's lost his mind. Lang Qianxian shook her head gently with a hint of pity. Ying Tian said indifferently, in this world, there are too many people who don't understand their own limits. They often think that they are favored children of the universe blessed with great fortune. Little do they know that they are merely extremely stupid ants. This person wants to die so badly that I don't even have to bother putting in any effort personally. Chapter 2405, 2405 Twilight. 2405 Twilight. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo crossed 100 feet and heard the fourth drumbeat. This time round, he did not release any divine powers or secret skills to defend. That was because he knew that the dharmic Tao contained in the sound of the twilight drum had already surpassed all his strength. It was useless even if he defended. Su Zimo could clearly sense his lifespan draining. 40,000 years passed in the blink of an eye. After walking 400 feet, he had already lost an entire 100,000 years of his lifespan. It was a mysterious sensation. Su Zimo controlled a divine power of time, fleeting moment. He had once used that supreme divine power to kill a grade 9 heaven immortal and witnessed the latter's lifespan dissipate instantly. However, he had never experienced the feeling of his own lifespan disappearing instantly on his body. The sound of the twilight drum reverberated through the hall. Su Zimo carefully comprehended the Tao and dharmic arts contained in the depths of the drumbeat and felt the cruelty of the passing of one's lifespan as the sound of the twilight drum descended. The reason why Su Zimo chose to continue forward was not out of greed. It was because he wanted to make use of the sound of the twilight drum to continue perfecting his fleeting moment. If possible, he wanted to push fleeting moment to its limits and break through any barriers there were to reach another peak. Of course, that action was accompanied by immense danger. If Su Zimo could not comprehend the dharmic Tao in the sound of the twilight drum, he would never be able to recover the lifespan he lost. However, all opportunities in the world were accompanied by danger. The most direct way to comprehend the sound of the twilight drum was to test it out personally. Only through enduring the baptism of the sound of the twilight drum could he experience the profoundness of the dharmic Tao within and comprehend it. He wants to comprehend the dharmic Tao of the twilight drum? Lang Qianqian seemed to have realized Su Zimo's intentions and frowned. Fu. Ying Tian chuckled. He must be dreaming if he thinks that he can comprehend the dharmic Tao of the twilight drum with just 10 drumbeat. Furthermore, he won't be able to hear all 10 drumbeats before his lifespan depletes completely. Lin Luo was enlightened. The test left behind by Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight for the sound of the twilight drum was not for everyone to advance with brute force. Instead, they had to comprehend and inherit the dharmic Tao of his twilight drum before they could break out of the situation and obtain the supreme pure purple cloud talisman. Ying Tian, Lang Qianqian, and Golden Feather naturally thought of this as well. However, even though they knew that the sound of the twilight drum was a test left behind by Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight, the 4 of them did not have the courage to continue forward. It was way too risky. Who was confident that they could comprehend the mysterious obscurities of the twilight drum within the 10 drumbeats? Right then, the 4th drumbeat dissipated completely and returned to silence. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo continued forward. Dong. The 5th drumbeat sounded. 50,000 years of lifespan was lost. Su Zimo had only walked half the distance and he had already lost an entire 150,000 years of lifespan. It was almost the same scene as Naihan earlier on. To Ying Tian and the others, Su Zimo seemed to be repeating the path Naihan had taken, even the outcome would be identical. The sound of the drum reverberated for a moment before calming down. Su Zimo's eyes were closed and his heart was free of distractions. He focused his attention and carefully comprehended the dharmic Tao contained in the sound of the twilight drum, sensing the subtle changes that happened to his body in that instant. Before long, Su Zimo opened his eyes and continued forward with a resolute gaze. Dong. The 6th drumbeat sounded. 60,000 years of lifespan was lost. Su Zimo's body trembled slightly. He had already lost an entire 210,000 years of lifespan by the time he arrived here. By the time Naihan reached this point, he had already turned into an old man with white hair and was at the end of his road. As for Su Zimo, although he looked more aged, his black hair fell like a waterfall and his face was rosy. He was filled with blood qi and was clearly still at his peak age. Naihan started at 80,000 years old, but Su Zimo was less than 10,000 years old. Even now, his age was less than 220,000 years old and he was still at the peak of the heaven immortal realm, his very young. With a single thought, Golden Feather deduced Su Zimo's original age. The fact that he managed to cultivate to this point in less than 10,000 years is truly impressive. Lang Qianqian said, unfortunately, his current age is no longer considered an advantage. Even if he stops now, the chances of him cultivating to the perfected immortal realm in the future are not high. Fellow Daoist, it's not too late to stop now. With a worried expression, Lin Luo looked at Su Zimo's back view and suddenly reminded, if you take another step forward and the 7th drumbeat sounds, you'll... Ha ha ha. Ying Tian burst into laughter and interrupted Lin Luo, mocking, not bad, not bad. Su Zimo, if you're afraid and wish to retreat, hurry on back. Don't be reckless. It was clear that Ying Tian's words were meant to agitate Su Zimo. If the 7th drumbeat sounded, Su Zimo would lose 70,000 years of his lifespan. At that time, he would also enter his twilight years and everything would be too late. Lin Luo glared at him and hollered, Ying Tian, you're way too vicious. Ying Tian pouted and sneered, this is his own choice. What has it got to do with me? I didn't force him. Furthermore, he already came this far. Naturally, he has to strengthen his beliefs and continue forward to finish with what he started. Right then, Su Zimo opened his eyes and continued forward. Dong. The 7th drumbeat sounded. A shocking change happened to Su Zimo's body as he aged rapidly. His face was filled with wrinkles and his hair was as white as snow. His flesh and blood were withered and he exuded the aura of twilight, turning old. Heaven immortals had a lifespan of 300,000 years and Suzimo was almost 290,000 years old. Fellow Daoist. When Lin Luo saw that, she exclaimed softly with a hint of pity in her eyes. Ha 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 ha. Ying Tian burst into laughter and was delighted. This person had just joined forces with Lin Luo and caused him and Lang Qianqian to suffer a slight loss. How could he not be happy that Suzimo was now in such a state? The moment Suzimo died, Ying Tian could naturally lay claim on his possessions. It would be even more perfect if he could find the heaven and earth slaying sword arts from Suzimo's corpse. I see. Suzimo stood on the spot motionlessly. Although his face was old, his eyes were extremely clear and shone brightly as he murmured softly. He had only just begun comprehending the sound of the twilight drum. Although he had some insights, he could not comprehend the true meaning behind it. It was only now that he was enlightened. Only in one's twilight years could one truly experience the dharmic Tao of the twilight drum and experience the cruelty of old age. Actually, this was another test from Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. Although Nai Hun also managed to arrive at this point in his twilight years, he was already on the brink of a mental breakdown at that time. Even his Tao heart was shaken, there was no way he could comprehend the dharmic Tao calmly. Nai Hun's Tao heart collapsed and he was basically gambling, dying after his lifespan was exhausted. The reason why Suzimo could remain so calm at this point was partly because his Tao heart was strong. His actions this time round were meant to comprehend the dharmic Tao of the sound of the twilight drum. Another reason was because he had once experienced these twilight years. This was a familiar state to him. Back in the Tao inheritance ground of Tianhuang mainland, when he established the martial Tao, he almost exhausted his lifespan before succeeding. Therefore, even at the end of his lifespan, he could still maintain his composure and calmness, comprehending the true meaning of the dharmic Tao of twilight. Chapter 2406, 2406 Level 5 Heaven Essence Realm. 2406 Level 5 Heaven Essence Realm. After the seventh drumbeat, Suzimo paused the longest. To Ying Tian and the others, Suzimo definitely could not withstand such a blow and was at a loss as to whether to advance or retreat. Right now, he must be in immense torture. If Suzimo took a step further, the eighth drumbeat would sound and he would definitely die. However, if he were to retreat, he would be in his twilight years and would not have much lifespan left. From his high spirits earlier on to his current twilight years, everything happened within a short distance of 700 feet in less than 15 minutes. Who could withstand such a blow? A long time later, Suzimo finally opened his eyes. His back was facing Ying Tian and the others and there was naturally no way they could see the look in his eyes. It was filled with the endless vicissitudes of time. Although Suzimo's body was almost at the end of its road, the glint in his eyes intensified. Under the gazes of Ying Tian and the others, Suzimo advanced once more. Don't. Lin Luo spoke instinctively. Ha ha. Ying Tian burst into laughter. He's too obsessed. Lang Qianqian shook her head, seemingly in pity. Dong. The eighth drumbeat sounded. However, to the surprise of Ying Tian and the others, Suzimo did not exhaust his lifespan. Instead, he wobbled across another 100 feet. His footsteps were slow and even staggered. However, his lifespan did not show any signs of decreasing. Ying Tian's laughter stopped abruptly. Lang Qianqian, Golden Feather and Lin Luo were dumbfounded as well. This time round, Suzimo did not stop in his tracks and continued forward. The ninth drumbeat sounded. Suzimo did not fall still and had a lifespan of 10,000 years remaining. It was as though the dharmic Tao of the twilight drum no longer had any effect on him. Ying Tian and the others widened their eyes and were dumbfounded. In that short period of time, Suzimo had already walked 900 feet away. Logically speaking, his lifespan should have been exhausted and he should have died. However, he was still advancing step by step towards the center of the hall. Could something have happened? Ying Tian and the others frowned. The dharmic Tao of the twilight drum in the hall must have dissipated. That thought flashed through Golden Feather's mind. Without batting an eyelid, He channeled his movement technique and suddenly sped forward, crossing 100 feet in the blink of an eye. Dong! But soon, Golden Feather heard the fourth drumbeat and shuddered. He stopped in his tracks hurriedly with a terrible expression. He had lost another 40,000 years of lifespan. Actually, Ying Tian had also deduced that possibility. However, he was extremely cautious and did not act rashly. Now that he saw Golden Feather's expression, he realized that the Dharmic Tao of the Twilight Drum was still here and had not vanished. This meant that there was a high chance that Su Zimo had already comprehended the Dharmic Tao of the sound of the Twilight Drum. That was the reason why he could defend against the impact of the Dharmic Tao. When he saw that Su Zimo was getting closer to the supreme pure purple cloud talisman in the middle of the hall, Ying Tian felt indignant. But soon, he was relieved and chuckled. So what if that lad can obtain the supreme pure purple cloud talisman? He paid almost 300,000 years of lifespan for it. That price is way too great. Lin Luo sneered. Don't tell me you think that Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight didn't leave any way out. What do you mean? Ying Tian frowned. Lin Luo said, Su Zimo obtained the inheritance of the Twilight Drum's Dharmic Tao. Do you think that Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight would let his successor die right after the test? Right then, Su Zimo had already arrived in the middle of the hall. He reached out and took the supreme pure purple cloud talisman, putting it in his storage bag. At the same time, he heard a crisp and distant bell sound, as though it came from the end of the sands of time and contained a mysterious and powerful power. The sound of the bell was completely different from the dreary sounds of the drum earlier on. The bell was filled with vitality and all living beings were invigorated. Against the impact of the bell, Su Zimo's body underwent a tremendous change as well. The flesh on his body gradually grew and the wrinkles on his face gradually smoothened out. His white hair transformed and turned pitch black as ink. He exuded vigor and his figure was tall and straight. His aura was torrential and was even stronger than before. The lifespan he had just lost had been completely returned. Dawn Bell. When Ying Tian saw that, he immediately understood what happened to Su Zimo and said word by word. Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight did not only leave behind the Dharmic Tao of the Twilight Drum in the hall, but the Dawn Bell as well. However, one could only receive the baptism of the Dawn Bell after comprehending the Twilight Drum. For example, although Ying Tian, Golden Feather and the others heard the Dawn Bell sound as well, they did not have the chance to endure the baptism of the Dawn Bell Dharmic Tao and the lifespan they lost could not be recovered. Su Zimo stood in the middle of the hall, receiving the baptism of the two Dharmic Taos, the Dawn Bell and Twilight Drum, in his flesh, tendons, bones and organs. This was equivalent to obtaining a new life in his twilight years. In between life and death, under the stimulation of the two extremity powers, the Green Lotus true body grew rapidly and transformed. The bottleneck that had troubled Su Zimo for a long time had also loosened. Su Zimo took a deep breath and absorbed the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi. He wanted to make use of this opportunity to break through and advance to the level 5 heaven essence realm. The moment he did that, a shocking change happened in the entire hall. Endless heaven and earth essence chi surged over from the walls of the hall, almost materializing into streams of air that entered Su Zimo's body. Su Zimo's body seemed to have transformed into a gigantic vortex that devoured the surrounding heaven and earth essence chi wildly. The heaven and earth essence chi in the hall was way too rich and had far surpassed everyone's imagination. How could this be? Golden Feather looked around with a shocked expression. I got it. Lang Qianqian looked around the hall as though she was enlightened. Suddenly, she said, the entire Jade Pure Palace was built from gigantic pieces of essence spirit stones. Pest. Ying Tian and the others felt their hearts skip a beat. The Jade Pure Palace was dozens of feet tall and such a gigantic palace was completely built from essence spirit stones. In other words, any random stone in the Jade Pure Palace was an essence spirit stone. The number of essence spirit stones required to build such a palace was uncountable, there might be hundreds of millions or even more. As a prince and princess, Ying Tian and Lang Qianqian had noble statuses and there was almost no lack of cultivation resources such as essence spirit stones. However, neither of them had ever seen so many essence spirit stones right in front of them. Furthermore, they were built into a gigantic palace. Even perfected immortals would be tempted by such a palace made of essence spirit stones, let alone heaven immortals. Boom! Right then, Suzimo's essence chi was at its peak. He broke through the bottleneck barrier in one go, entering the level 5 heaven essence realm. A tremendous amount of heaven and earth essence chi surged within his body. Suzimo's aura was also rising rapidly. Chapter 2407, 2407 Final Test. 2407 Final Test. Golden Feather glared at Suzimo and his gaze flickered. Suddenly, he said, "This person's methods are not weak. Now that he has advanced to become a grade 5 heaven immortal, he's probably even more difficult to deal with." The blue-robed boy from before died in Suzimo's hands. Even Prince Yingtian and Princess Lang Qianqian could not gain any advantage against Suzimo. Initially, Golden Feather thought that he would be able to gain a share of the battle between the 9 of them. The way things were unfolding, that seemed to be getting more difficult. Notwithstanding Yingtian and Lang Qianqian, he could not even defeat Suzimo and Lin Luo. Right then, a door to another hall not far away opened. Everyone's eyes lit up and they moved without hesitation, charging towards the hall. 9 of them entered the Jade Pure Palace. Right now, there were only 5 of them remaining. However, there were no traces of the Jade Pure Jade Manual the entire time. Towards the end, the chances of the Jade Pure Jade Manual would increase. Since they no longer had the chance to obtain the Supreme Pure Purple Cloud Talisman, there was no need for them to waste time here. Suzimo stabilized his cultivation realm slightly and did not continue to absorb heaven and earth essence chi. At the same time, he moved and charged towards the door of the hall. The 5 of them entered the hall one after another and their gazes landed in the middle. There was a stone table with a bamboo scroll on the surface that emitted a green glow. Jade Pure Jade Manual. All 5 of their eyes lit up. Although no one had seen the Jade Pure Jade Manual before, the 5 of them knew in their hearts when they saw the bamboo scroll that this was definitely the Jade Pure Jade Manual. The true treasure of this secret ground had finally appeared before everyone. Hey! Lin Luo seemed to have sensed something and exclaimed softly. After charging into the hall, Lin Luo could sense that her heaven and earth essence chi was sealed in her body and could not be used at all. She was not the only one. Suzimo and the others noticed this abnormality at the same time. "There's a powerful seal in this hall." Lang Qianqian murmured softly. "I got it." Suddenly, Yingtian burst into laughter. "The seal of this hall is the final test of Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight. From what I know, the Supreme Pure Jade Manual refines the spirit while the Grand Pure Jade Manual refines techniques. As for the Jade Pure Jade Manual, a body tempering technique is contained within it. The reason why Immortal Emperor Dawn Twilight set up such a seal in this hall is because he wants us to fight with our physiques and blood chi without the use of any divine powers or secret skills to determine the eventual successor." Lin Luo frowned slightly. Her cultivation realm was slightly inferior to Yingtian and Lang Qianqian. The reason why she was able to join forces with Suzimo to fight against the prince and princess earlier on was because she had many divine powers and secret skills. She was not good at melee combat in terms of physique or bloodline. According to her observation, although Suzimo beside her was strong and could even fight the prince and princess head-on, what he displayed were all sorts of powerful secret skills and immortal arts. If this person's essence spirit and essence chi were restricted such that he could not use any divine powers or secret skills, the restriction on him would be extremely obvious as well. He looked like a frail scholar and did not release any blood chi previously. He must have a weak physique and ordinary bloodline. As for Yingtian and Lang Qianqian, both of them possessed the bloodline of immortal emperors and cultivated bloodline phenomenons with strong physiques. Although they had just released their bloodline phenomenons and could not release them again within a short period of time, their melee combat skills were almost invincible in this hall. Lin Luo looked at Suzimo worriedly. This situation was extremely disadvantageous for the 2 of them. Even if they joined forces with Golden Feather, they might not be a match for Yingtian and Lang Qianqian. It would be best if Yingtian and Lang Qianqian could fight one another. They might be able to seize an opening. However, Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian were no fools. They would definitely join forces to clear other obstacles before fighting for the ownership of the Pure Jade Manual. Unlike Lin Luo, Su Zimo had a calm expression, as though he did not notice the slight change in the situation. Lin Luo sighed internally. Unable to send a voice transmission with her spirit consciousness, she could only remind softly, "Fellow Daoist Su, you must be careful later on. Try not to fight them head-on." Su Zimo smiled gently without commenting. If he was still a Grade 4 Heaven Immortal, the Green Lotus True Body might not be a match for Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian if he could not use his blood qi. But now, the Green Lotus True Body had grown to become a Grade 5 Heaven Immortal. After releasing the 6-tusk Divine Strength, his strength would increase exponentially and was enough to fight against Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian. "Fellow Taoists, why don't I join forces with you guys?" Golden Feather pondered for a moment and suddenly said to Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian, "Although my cultivation realm is only at the Grade 5 Heaven Immortal realm, I can definitely suppress strong foes above my level in melee combat." Golden Feather was a 3D golden crow and had a strong bloodline. He was not lying. Relying on the sun essence blood of the golden crow race, his bloodline was scorching hot and his blood qi surged like a volcano eruption with a powerful aura that was extremely difficult to defend against. Notwithstanding the fact that he was invincible among his peers, there were few living beings of the same race that could match him. Golden Feather pointed at Su Zimo and said in a deep voice, "Leave this Grade 5 Heaven Immortal to me. Fellow Taoists, deal with Lin Luo. As for the Pure Jade Manual, I'll definitely not lay my hands on it. I only hope that you can let me take away something from Su Zimo's storage bag." Golden Feather was extremely smart and judged the situation accurately. His senses were also extremely sharp. He could tell that even if he joined forces with Su Zimo and Lin Luo, they would definitely not be a match for Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian in this hall. Notwithstanding the fact that their physiques and bloodlines were strong, they were invincible in melee combat. He did not know what else they had up their sleeves given their statuses as the prince and princess. Previously, neither of them revealed many trump cards in the fight for the other treasures because the Pure Jade Manual had yet to appear and both of them restrained themselves. But now that the Pure Jade Manual had appeared, it definitely belonged to the two of them. Rather than dreaming of fighting for it, he might as well retreat and join forces with the two of them to fight for a share of the loot. The wise recognize their circumstances. Ying Tian smiled gently. "You can join forces with us. However, you don't have to deal with Su Zimo. Just hold back Lin Luo. Given the bloodline of your 3D Golden Crow race, it shouldn't be a problem for you to fight someone who is only a minor realm above you, right?" Golden Feather hesitated for a moment before nodding and saying, "There's naturally no problem." Although he was agreeable, he cursed internally. The reason why he suggested dealing with Su Zimo was because he had a little plan of his own. Because they were both Grade 5 Heaven Immortals, it was extremely easy for him to suppress Su Zimo and he could even save a lot of energy. If Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian were to end up in an internecine outcome, he would still have a chance to take advantage of the situation. However, Ying Tian could clearly tell his intentions and wanted him to deal with Lin Luo. Lin Luo's physique and bloodline were not strong and posed no threat to him. However, Lin Luo's movement technique was mysterious and it was extremely difficult for Golden Feather to suppress her. Although both parties joined forces on the surface, they were still scheming through their words. "If I'm entangled by Golden Feather, it'll be difficult for me to escape." Lin Luo whispered, "You don't have much of a chance against Ying Tian and Lang Chanxian. The situation isn't looking good. Why don't we leave this place first?" "Ha ha ha ha." Ying Tian burst into laughter and guarded both sides of the hall with Lang Chanxian, saying slowly, "It's too late for you to leave now. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.